We'd like to welcome Rennie Sibon for the Temple Star and recognize Mary Corey McCarthy for the Channel 32. Thank you for providing your good services to our town. We will start by an opening prayer and I will do the honor. Dear Father in heaven, we come before thee this time at the start of this council meeting, grateful to have those wonderful councillors to work together to find proper solutions to the problems that are presented at this table. We pray that this night we'll be able to use wisdom and make the right decisions on behalf of our citizens. And this we pray humbly in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, we need to adopt the agenda. There are no additions as far as I know, unless Councillor Barfuss, you want to make a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll move to adopt the agenda.
Thank you.
I have
Any
an
questions?
addition. I have an addition, Mayor.
Uh,
I had my hand up, but you're looking the wrong way.
Oh, I'm sorry, my eyes
I want to discuss council times, the meeting times, so that we're not always looking at that clock and moving our meetings ahead. I think we need to set a close time a lot later than what we've got. That's the only thing my concern is.
Okay.
Our start times are good, but we're always looking at the clock and motion for extensions and stuff.
Okay, Councillor Barfuss, Councillor, would you like to put it somewhere under what would you like to have it?
I don't know, let me see.
Business arising?
Why don't we put it under questions?
Questions, yeah.
Okay, and we will discuss that a little bit more to understand exactly the issue.
Good.
Okay. Time of council. Okay. All right. So with this addition, could we?
I'll move to accept the agenda with the addition of time of council.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Adopted. We're going to try to move as much as we can until we have our first delegation at 5:15. So if you had reviewed the minutes, do you have any questions regarding the minutes of the council meeting of April 22nd?
I'll move to adopt the minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. We might go to 6A, AUMA resolution. This is a follow-up of what we said we would like to do, is to present a resolution to AUMA regarding the education. I wrote that resolution and would like to know if there are some points in there that you feel need to be changed, or if you feel
This is
comfortable.
number 6, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, 6A. So if you see what I've done with it, every point, whereas, which is the reasoning, I have put a background, a reference to it. So the reference is there to make sure that everything I was saying was backed up with something and with proper sources.
I thought it was well written.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments? All right. Are we willing to pass a motion to approve this resolution to send to AUMA? So I need a motion.
I'll make the motion to...
Okay, Councillor Edmonds, would you go ahead?
I'll make the motion to accept this recommendation to AUMA.
Okay.
Do we know the deadline on that? When do those have to be
It's the end
submitted?
of May,
End of May.
so it needs to be sent. All right, any questions? All in favor? Thank you. Okay, if you see on your table, there is a list of sample for resolutions.
Motion.
There are a few motions that we have to adopt today. And if you remember, last time, about 2 councils ago or so, we said that we were going to try to improve on the way we were going to do our resolutions at the table. So I thought today I would present a sample for this council meeting to give you a little bit of a sense of how it works, since I got plenty of practice when I wrote the one for AUMA.
I'm used to those whereases.
And so I have done some, so every time we have something that needs to be resolved, there needs to be an explanation, and the whereas is the explanation as to why we're going to do what we're going to do as council. Okay? So if you want to use those when you put the motion forward today, as we move on, please go ahead, read the motion the way they are, or tweak it the way you feel it should be tweaked. They are samples, that's all what they are. Okay. All right. Municipal Development Plan feedback, 6B. As Marian, she had not received feedback. It's maybe still a big document to, that should be on your
In
thing.
here, I got 6A, and it goes down to 7A, I don't have 6B.
Okay. 6B was a follow-up. Go ahead.
Madam Mayor, there's no link document, it's just
Okay.
simply in the background.
Yeah,
So if you look on your agenda,
on your background or.
On the background, okay.
It came out of the last meeting we had, and we had said we would strive to bring some information back. We have that meeting tomorrow at 9 o'clock. And so we were, if you had something that really was bothering you, we
Yeah,
were interested in getting
was
that information.
aware, maybe I should have, talked to Marian before, but I thought, well, you're going to discuss it tonight at the council, so. One item, I just was going through the development plan, and I understand, this is kind of our direction, it kind of comes from our strategic planning, and it's a higher level document.
Right.
And
It's an umbrella document, okay?
I remember from one of the things that I felt was quite a high priority in our strategic planning was developing or attracting a college or university for our community. And I kept looking for it in the development plan to see if there was something there, and I didn't really see it, and I had the feeling that that should be something that's in our municipal development plan, is the need or the priority to attract or
to not
develop
lose
a
it,
college or university for our
Yeah.
community.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting point. Don't quite know how we missed that one, but it might be on the overarching economic development,
Yeah, I can look at that.
possibly.
Yeah, I didn't see it there, so.
Thank you.
Well,
Any other point?
I had one, I don't know which page it is, I just remember the concern I had. There's an item in here that talks regarding talking to the government regarding our feelings about a hospital facility. And it says that we need to be, basically it's saying that we need to be proactive. And I'm just wondering why we haven't been proactive, why we're waiting for the government to come back and tell us what they want us to have, as opposed to us contacting them. That's the one concern I have. If we're being proactive, we're not supposed to be waiting. And that's what's in here, the way it's written.
Okay.
So I want to know why.
Okay. Here's a little bit of the issue. We had a presentation done at the intermunicipal committee, and the Alberta House came, and the county was there. And the plan was presented from AHS, but not from the ministry level, from the ministries that deal with the levels that deal with infrastructure, okay, and with need assessment. There are 9 steps to move forward. We are right now at step 6+. So we're 1 step removed from the treasury. We're moving in the right direction. Maybe it has not been publicized, but we're moving in the right direction. The political pressure will need to come when we hit that step 7, which is where the minister gets involved. So, meanwhile, we can have our MLA start to make the right contact. We need to ourselves to talk to the right people. We need to make every effort possible when we have an ear to let people know that we're interested in that project to come through. The true pressure comes when it hits the treasury. When it hits the treasury, every single project in the province competes for the same dollar. Schools, bridges, roads, hospital. And then from all those projects, there are priorities that are set. The minister then, it's a political game. It is, can't deny that. Will then recommend a certain amount of project to move forward to funding. So right now, our project is on a priority list. It has been shortlisted, if you want, but it's non-funded. That is another problem. And every pressure of this council will not get the funding because that's not the way it works. So you have to follow a certain amount of steps. So although you say we have done nothing, in fact we done quite a bit.
I didn't say that, I'm just saying.
I think the impression is that everybody's just been sitting back and waiting. I don't think that's been the actual case. I just think it hasn't been very public.
Yeah, it's not public yet. The public portion comes when the political at the provincial level start to delve into the matter. Until then, it is a matter of following the steps and not missing a bit. And we have not missed a bit, and we're quite aware with Councillor Creed and Councillor Peavoy and administration of what's going on. And I wrote, in fact, a document that you will have. Marian, was a document sent to everybody?
No,
It was sent to Councillor Creed and Councillor Peavoy because I wanted to make sure that I captured the whole story right.
Yeah.
If I have, I will send that document to everybody.
Okay.
Okay?
Good.
Madam
Thank
Mayor,
you.
Yeah.
that will go as part of the committee report.
At the end of the month, the 28th of May.
Right, I don't think we want
Right.
to duplicate by sending out emails and then putting it in the committee
Yeah.
reports.
You're correct.
It's important that it all goes through the committee report.
Right, okay. But the 28th, you will get that. I'll send it to Councillor because I was there and I wanted to make sure I reflected this. Okay, we don't have...
So along those lines, just to follow up, my feeling on the municipal plan, and obviously there are people that know more about these than myself working on them, but it just, as I was reading through, everything seemed very broad, very general, almost very vague. It didn't seem very specific.
You're correct.
Which, I mean, frankly, I loved because, you lock down too many specifics, you get into trouble. But as has been mentioned, maybe we want to include a couple of specifics, such as the specific university initiative, and that it's a big part of our planning, and we want to plan around it. Same, I'm thinking, with the hospital that's just been brought up. When you look down here in the health services, it doesn't even mention that we're on a list, and that we have a plan to have a hospital, and whether that's going to, if this is a 5-year plan, but the hospital is in our 5-year plan, I think the hospital should be mentioned maybe in our development plan.
The difficulty is, as you remember carefully, we are on a list, but we do not know at the end if that hospital will be there in 10 years or 15 years. All what they could tell us is that they
According to
will
this
maintain
development
it.
plan, it won't be happening in the next 5.
No.
So I'm just thinking that maybe adding it helps us be a little more proactive, as Councillor Barnes was pointing out.
I guess
Okay.
one other concern I have too is the hospital, it's been on again, off again, on again, off again. I talked with the fellow who builds them. He's in charge of when it comes to the building process. I sold a piece of land for his mom, and he came into my office and was talking to me and said, oh, by the way, Cardston, your guy's gonna be getting a hospital here within 5 years, and I'm gonna be involved in the planning, and I'm thinking, okay, well, that's been 2 years now, and now he said that we're on the list with it for within 5 years, and now we're really not on the list for any particular time frame.
Okay, let
So I'm
me
just
tell
wondering,
you.
who knows really what's happening when you have that fellow telling me this, and,
Okay. Okay.
I'm really confused.
Okay, well, the confusion comes from the fact that the Alberta Health Service doesn't want to commit to a timeline because priority can change according to emergency need. And this is why they cannot commit. They could tell you in 5 years and then you hold them to it and the population is up in arms.
Yeah.
And that's not what they want,
Yeah.
okay?
So
That why.
is this a discussion that can go to the
Planning board.
well, no, to the committee report council meeting?
It is there, you will see, I
Well,
have
then-
written
then-
a
then
very detailed report.
Why are we discussing it in length right now?
Well-
I mean, this is just basically a waste of time if we're gonna discuss it in another meeting.
Yeah,
We're
Well,
discussing it in
I
another meeting.
think what's on the table right now is us as a council sending this back to the committee with any suggestions we have. So if I can I mean, is that what we're discussing right? this
Well,
minute?
That's
think-
the feedback of the
I
municipal
think
development.
I mean, if we just wanna not read it, submit it with no suggestions, then I'm all ready for a vote right now. But if you want us to actually do some
No,
suggestions,
that's not-
then I'm
that's
ready
not-
with one right this minute. I'm ready with one right this minute.
Well, this is why we had asked you to come prepared to send them ahead of time to administration, so we would all have,
Oh, I didn't
That to
hear the part where we were gonna
discuss,
send
that's
them
was the whole
to
idea.
administration before.
Well, my
That's what
understanding
we
was
had
that we
said.
were coming here this week to
To
discuss
discuss
it.
it, that's my
That was
understanding.
I wasn't told to
Well,
have
that
a
was
proposal,
not my
just come here
understanding.
with some ideas.
my understanding was we were coming with all the ideas ahead of time and all have a chance to read them and then discuss them.
Okay, I apologize. If
No,
if
that's
you
all
want,
right.
we can
It's okay.
submit our suggestions in writing and maybe discuss them at our next council meeting, or,
Marian, would that be something that would be okay to extend that a little bit and have those submissions?
The reason that it was on the
Just
agenda
because
for
tomorrow
tonight
we
is-
have the meeting.
No, it's actually next Wednesday,
Oh,
the
sorry.
21st. So we had a little bit of a deadline there. Either way, whichever council feels most appropriate, it would be fine to discuss it tonight. I've got a couple of points here that can be discussed at the committee level.
Right.
You're not actually approving the plan, you're just
No.
providing input, so
Yeah.
either way, and we will continue, the committee will continue to take
To seek
input.
information.
We were just hoping to have some input to take back to the committee prior to the meeting on the 21st. So it doesn't preclude you from having further input in the
Right.
future.
Is there something else you would like to add?
Just to clarify now then, are our comments tonight sufficient input, or do you want a written submission on this, or that's what I wondered, so I'm clear, is that if our comments that we've expressed tonight are sufficient for
I
you to
think
take
those are
back?
pretty good.
If I might, Madam Mayor, you have two council members who sit on that committee, and it would be appropriate for those two council members to take your recommendations back to the committee for further discussion.
Yeah, and I think that would be appropriate.
excellent. I just noticed, when it talks about roads in section 13,
Right.
section 13.2 talks about developing new roads, new routes, exciting new, upgrading existing. However, up here in the hospital section, it doesn't say anything about new or upgrading existing or improving, despite that's one of our initiatives. So I just thought if we had
Okay.
a clause similar to 13.2 in 12.2, for instance, that would be worthwhile.
Okay, and it's a good point. The reason was that until quite recently, the AHS did not know if they were going to do an upgrade, a restoration, or totally got it and
Right.
start
And
anew.
if I may, just from my perspective, regardless of anything AHS is
Okay.
doing, I believe this clause would be in here, even if we hadn't heard from them
Okay,
yet.
all
So I
right.
think with the new news, That's an
Okay.
even more incentive to put it in. But
Okay.
even if we hadn't heard that, I'd still say, we as a community are working on this. We have initiatives, we're
Okay.
getting some planning, we're getting, we're making progress, we're being proactive.
Okay, well, let's bring it back to the committee then. Okay, would that be all right? Do you want to discuss any further? I think we have our first delegation. And would you
Let's bring on the
be okay to have? So those are recommendations for the committee, and Marian took notes. If you have any other recommendation you want to make, go ahead. And if I appeared a little bit pushy on that one, sorry, I didn't mean to be.
That's all right, we know how to push back.
No worries.
All right, thank you.
One
So-
suggestion, maybe don't be so defensive of drafts when it's our job to change them. Like,
Thank
that's
you very
that's
much.
our job, that's
No,
what we were
it
elected to do.
is exactly
Yeah.
your, right. I'll take that suggestion, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Biese, Albert, if you like to come and do your presentation on Chief Mountain Gas.
I'm just taking a moment for the projector to come on.
All right.
There's some goodies for council.
We always like goodies.
You know, we have hard time accepting bribes.
They're not edible unless you eat paper.
As long as it's disclosed publicly on the camera, we're good.
Yeah.
That's right. You can't eat paper.
Okay. We're gonna find out.
Graham, can you move that up where this can reach it?
Are you okay with that?
Yeah, no, that's fine like that.
So just forward back,
Okay, simple.
hopefully.
It's too bad they didn't have, that's what I'm saying. That's 2 hours already.
Yeah.
First of all, I just want to thank the council for allowing me to come tonight. Chief Mountain Gas Co-op is a member-owned cooperative gas distribution company that services the Cardston County and a number of other counties. We service 4 municipalities. So we just, our board of directors felt it important that we make presentations to the existing councils after an election. So that's why we're here. We're not selling any goods, so we're just saying what we do, and we are a taxpayer in the town of Cardston, so we appreciate this opportunity to come here. So in 1973, Chief Mountain Gas Co. was established as a member-owned cooperative, as I mentioned. In the early 70s, Premier Lougheed, those of you who remember his days, made a couple of initiatives. One of them was that every Albertan deserves natural gas, and the second one was that he wants paved roads within 10 miles of every major center or something. I can't remember exactly the wording, but so in the early 70s, he went to the 2 private utilities, ATCO Gas and Alta Gas, and said, we want you to draw boundaries around your service area, and we're going to take the rest of the province and divide it up and give it to co-ops. So that's what Alta Gas and ATCO Gas did. They defined their boundaries, service area, and then the province started an initiative through Alberta Agriculture, getting volunteers to form these co-ops. So in the early days, and before my time, most of the meetings were held in somebody's kitchen in the co-op area. Annual general meetings were usually held in the church, one of the churches in the area. A lot of campaigning door to door to try and get support for people to join the co-op movement and get natural gas for their heating source. So we were started in 1973 is when we were incorporated as a company. In 2002, we amalgamated with Summerview Gas Co-op, which is services over by Pitcher Creek. Summerview had amalgamated with Livingston Gas Co-op previous to that. In about 1995 or something, they amalgamated. So they were both smaller co-ops than ourselves, and found that they just couldn't keep up with the expenses of running a smaller co-op. And so we amalgamated and became larger. We serve a USA customer, one of the only gas utilities in Canada that actually crosses the border and serves US customers. We're quite proud of that opportunity we have. It's the Port of Carway, Port, they call it on the US side. And there's about 26 services there. All of you have noticed all the houses going up, and there's another 8 to 10 planned there, so in the next year. We currently have 1,566 service risers or customers in our area. That was forward. There we go. Primarily, our business is a natural gas distribution company. We have 10 miles of high-pressure steel lines, 60 miles of high-pressure aluminum lines, and countless miles of polyethylene plastic service lines. We offer 100% burner tip service to all of our customers, which means we can do anything with their gas appliances that they need help with, and we provide that as a service. So if you're a customer of Chief Mountain Gas, you're having problems with the furnace, you give us a call, we come and fix them. 24/7 on call, and service is one of our priorities to our customers. We serve 5 different municipalities: Cardston County, the MDs of Pincher Creek, Willow Creek, and it shouldn't be Foothill, it should be Ranch Lands. I found out after the secretary made this, but and also the improvement district, I think it's number 4, which is Waterton Lakes National Park. We work closely with ATCO and Alta Gas in adjoining franchise areas. So you'll see on our, I don't know if it's this slide or the next one. No. That talks about our membership. So we currently have 1,119 members. Now the difference between members and our 1,500 customers is that the Cooperative Act in the province of Alberta states that commercial businesses, government, industry cannot be members of the gas co-op. And so we've got about 400 customers that fit in that category. So our actual membership is 1,119 members. And the diverse group of end users: residential, commercial, irrigation, Hutterite colonies, grain dryers, greenhouses, federal government, USA government, and industry. That's our web page. Shows a little map there. Chief Mountain, of course, you all know why we're called Chief Mountain. That was the name picked by the original founders. The green is our service area on that map. So the areas outside of that green are served by either an adjacent co-op. On the east, we have Triple W Gas Co-op, which is in Warner, that join us on the east. And then ATCO is on the north of us, on the Bud Reserve. Alta Gas is in Pincher Creek. And then up Granham Country is ATCO Gas again. So there's scattered service areas around us, but that's our franchise area in the green. So the franchise area means that ATCO can't come into our area, and we can't go into their area to service customers. We're protected by that under the Cooperatives Act. Now, needless to say, we do swap customers occasionally. We have some of our fringe area that it's not feasible for us to serve, and so we'll exchange customers with ATCO or Alta Gas, and they've done the same. Contact information, as I mentioned, our main office is here in Cardston. We're down on the north side of the cement plant by Extra Foods, and are a taxpayer in the town. So our board members in Zone 1, we have 3 zones that we're divided into, and every year a board member is elected. Half of Cardston County and Waterton Lakes National Park. Those are the 3 familiar names to the Cardston area. And then our third area, oh, too fast. Now it's working good. Yeah, go back. There. That's the east half of Cardston County, or the McGrath to Bonita country. And there's 3 directors there. Throughout this year, 2014, it's the 50th anniversary of the Federation of Alberta Gas Co-ops, which is our main body that represents all the co-ops in lobbying to the government. They've decided for their 50th year campaign to do a fundraising through the Children's Hospital Foundation. So it's the Stollery Hospital in Edmonton and the Calgary Children's Hospital. every one of the co-ops. There's 52 co-ops in the province currently, 5 counties that are part of the federation, and then 3 or 4 Indian reserves that are part of the federation. So each of them was asked to find some way to do donations through the federation. Our co-op board decided just to send out a mailing to our members and ask them to contribute. Some of the co-ops are doing fundraising events, holding dances or golf tournaments and doing it that way, but our members are just asked to donate privately. Sometimes it works really good, and then
Actually, it's
down there.
at the laptop over there. Graham will advance it.
Graham will advance it. There you go. So that just talks a little bit more about the 50th for Kids celebration. Representing most of rural Alberta as cooperatives, we felt that children's hospitals are a very valuable resource, especially for rural Albertans. We have children too, and they have issues, concerns and health concerns, and possibly more accidents in rural Alberta than in the major centers, but they're needed there at the Children's Hospital. In the last 2 years, the co-op has noticed, as the town probably has, that our investment income is way down on investments, and so the co-op board took a step out and ventured into becoming a distributor for a product that's related to our industry. We got the Canadian distributorship for Blackstone products. Their patio ovens, there's a brochure there, a large griddle, commercial griddle, and also a tailgater model they call for camping. And we've been to a few trade shows in the province. We've had requests to go to more trade shows across Canada, but investment dollars, advertising dollars aren't there yet. So we're getting the word out. We're shipping product. Shipped one to Quebec yesterday, and so we're selling, moving some product. And just recently we took back ownership of the greenhouse building that was next to us. They were leasing that property from us, and so we purchased that tent, storage tent that's there, and we're using it as the storage warehouse for our product. That's our staff currently. We have 7 full-time employees. There are 5 service people, and like I mentioned, they're on call 24/7. They alternate a call basis, and we provide that service.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
Now, I know you service the gas in the rural areas, but not in town, but you still sell to the local people in town.
Yeah.
That 24-hour service still, is that for them too, when they buy product from you, stoves?
Yeah, for the most
whatever?
part, yeah. Yeah, we do. The ones that buy product from us will try and provide that. Atco Gas, they don't like it. I shouldn't advertise. This is recorded, right? They do provide that service, but they won't do the repair. So they'll come and evaluate the problem with your appliance, but they don't do the repair. So anyways, that's all I'll say on that.
So I can call you at any time to get my
Yeah.
stove
We have
fixed?
somebody
or
on call
furnace?
24 hours a day, so. And we try
2
and...
o'clock preferable?
We try and, because we're customer oriented more, we'll try and help the customer through for the night. For example, if your furnace wasn't working, and it was a cold night, we'll try and help you over the phone to get it going till morning. There's no use paying overtime for us to come out to repair it, so we try and, like I say, customer service is our priority to service them. So, in closing, we just feel it's very crucial for the municipal councils to be aware of Chief Mountain Gas Co-op Limited. We are a member-owned and operated utility, not serving your taxpayers necessarily as gas distribution companies, but as a retail business, we do service your taxpayers. And thank you for allowing us to introduce ourselves. Now, before I close, though, I'll answer some questions, and then I had another issue I wanted to bring up. It's on the agenda, but I'll take my time while I've got the podium.
The issue is 7A that will be discussed.
So, Bill? Yeah.
Well, I was just going to point out that in addition to being a tax-paying business within town, You're also a faithful member of the local Chamber of Commerce,
Yes, we are.
and very supportive there, so.
Yeah. Yeah, we're very community-minded. In the rural area, every community had a community center or a school at one time. If I tried to make a list of all the communities that were there in 1973, it would be quite a long list. We still provide service to 5 or 6 community halls that are still standing. We provide free service to them as far as work, because they're only staying open because they're trying to keep their community alive. And they're smaller communities, like around here, they're not going anymore, but Jefferson is gone now, Whiskey Gap is gone. The Levitt community have a community hall, you know, that they built recently, and they're trying to use that as a community center. So we've got 7 or 8 of those community centers that are serviced by us, and
Thank you.
try to do that, so.
I appreciate the service of your rendering in the community. Would you like to address the other issue?
I would
maybe?
like to address that if you'd allow me to.
Thank you.
As part of our facility down where we are, when we bought that in 1981, I think it was, there was a campground there, a fully serviced campground on site. There were 22 sites, I think, originally, service sites. And so we continued to operate that as a campground facility. That was before the Lee Creek campground days. We serviced a lot of larger custom combine groups, larger camps, work camps would come and stay there. Over the last while, and especially since Lee Creek campground opened up, and we addressed this concern with the administration at the time of the Lee Creek campground being built, that we didn't want to say they shouldn't be in that business, but they were going to be taking business away from us. So at that time they said, well, how about you just keep doing the large camp groups, because we don't really want them in the campground anyways, and that was fine. And then and so that worked for a few years, and then when you privatized the campground with private contractors, we saw that eliminated. We no longer saw groups. Gravel truck companies, like the drivers, would usually park their trailers there because there was good parking for their trucks. And so the concern is that it's last year, I think you built larger lots south of the Reunion Center to accommodate larger trailers, I know, but also we've seen those larger groups staying there also. And so we're trying to decide if we want to keep a campground going. The last 2 years we approached the Quintons and the, who's the other? Avery's. And they actually came and maintained our campground. They mowed the lawn and cleaned the bathrooms for us. And they used it as an overflow, but there wasn't very often there was overflow. We've advertised in the Alberta Tourism Camping Guide, and we've got signs up, and but your facility is a lot nicer, there's no doubt about it. But we'd like to try and figure out some way that we can either keep it viable, or we're going to close it down essentially, because it's not paying the taxes and utilities and the upkeep on it for what we're getting in there currently. So it's just a suggestion, if it could be used as an overflow and maintained by the same, but last year the Quintons said they didn't want to do it anymore, just I think primarily because they losing some of their kids to mow lawns, you know, their staff. But anyways, we just wanted to bring it up as a concern that we're trying to compete with the tax-based business, and it's hard to compete that way. So thank you again.
Thank you. Any question at this point? We will discuss that when it comes to 7A. Is that fair? Okay.
All right.
Albert, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to give a chance to James Heinlein to come and talk for the Rotary Club. It's regarding the transfer of the handy bus, the old handy bus, to an organization in Mexico that needed it very badly. So, welcome.
Thank you. I got a little PowerPoint, well, it's not little, it's pretty long. I want to go through it as quickly as possible. First of all, Mayor Kronen and councillors, Carlson, thank you very much for allowing me to have a few minutes of your time. Just so you know, the last time I gave this presentation, it was over an hour long, so I will try to do this in 15 minutes or less.
Good.
As I've been instructed to.
Less will be good.
What was
Hold
that?
you to it.
We've got some automated taxing, we'll have to keep them moving forward with that one.
No worries. All right, so yes, from, let's just get going here. Is this working?
Pointer over the laptop over there and you'll be in better shape.
Do you want Graham to just focus?
Yeah, Graham, just forward.
Oh, there you go, you're rolling.
So what is the Los Amigos project? So we need to first talk about what this project is and how we got involved with it. It was designed by a few people within Rotary to take emergency vehicles down to Mexico, to communities that are in need of it. There has been Rotary clubs up in Grand Prairie that's been doing this for 14 years. This one was started by a gentleman by the name of Jim Campbell. He is a assistant district governor for our district for Rotary International. And we take vehicles down to Mexico. That's what we do. So how did we get involved with this? I was president of I had the opportunity to be the president of the Rotary Club of Cardston from 2012 to 2013. It's a one-year term from July to June. And our big thing that we had raised money for was for the Carlson District Handy Bus Association, a new bus that they had received, and we funded a good portion of the wheelchair lift. So then they had this handy bus that they were trying to sell, and it was sitting at CSL board, and we figured we could do something with it, as we had a presentation by the Los Amigos project. So we purchased it by donation to the Carlson District Handy Bus Association for $1,500. And that's what happened. So there it is right there. This is on, this is Larry Scow. I had the great opportunity to go with Larry Scow, and if any of you know Larry, he's a great person, a man that I certainly respect, and I got to spend 2 weeks with him. Maybe he's got the opportunity to spend 2 weeks with me, I don't know. But, we had a great opportunity to be together and to get to know one another and also other people. This took from Sunday to Saturday. The first was to Lethbridge to Dillon. This is us driving. It was cold when we left, snowy. This was the morning in Dillon. Sorry, I'm going pretty quick. Then we went from Dillon to Fillmore, Utah. I went in Utah there. Then from Fillmore to Kingman, Arizona. This was, the picture on the left is, we were at a restaurant in St. George, so we just thought we'd take a picture. That is a picture of us going to Arizona from St. George, back into Nevada, and then back into Arizona for Kingman. Of course, here's some pictures. This is Lake Mead, and Vegas was on the left. You can kind of see it in the haze. Again, I'm just cruising. We had a meeting with Kingman, Arizona Rotary Club. There is a tradition within Rotary to give banners, and that banner has Rotary Club of Cardston written on the outside of it. In the middle is the town of Cardston crest, so we'll have the temple, the Rocky Mountains in the background, and the Carriage Museum on it. And it has that we co-sponsor the Waterton Glacier Peace Park Assembly. Our next trip was from Kingman to Tucson, Arizona. This was a long drive too. It's all a long drive. That's Phoenix, and that is just us driving. In Tucson, we met two Rotary members from Mazatlan, Pancho and Chancho. They were there to make sure we got through the border of Mexico okay, because no one speaks Spanish very well.
So
This is the last meal.
They rode across with you?
Oh, you betcha they did, absolutely. This is the last meal in the U.S. It was a Mexican restaurant, ironic. Our next trip, this was a shorter trip. It was from Tucson, Arizona to Nogales, Mexico. It's a short trip, about an hour and 24 minutes. We spent 7 hours at the border in Mexico, just waiting. Just waiting. It was great. This is the picture on the right was actually from our hotel room. That's Nogales. They have military everywhere. The place that we were staying at was actually a barracks for the state police. So they had Uzis and guns and all that other stuff. Our next stop was Navajoa. This was again another long drive of the day, but the roads were actually pretty nice there. It's not bad. It's not a bad middle drive. Yeah, right. Interesting thing is that when you cross the border into Mexico that first day, you don't show your passport. You don't show your passport till actually the next day when you're driving about, I think, 10 miles or 15 miles after we stayed overnight. Then we showed our passports and then purchased our visas. Nobody really wants to go into Mexico, apparently. So those are the roads. Like if you look on the right, that's the road. It's not too bad. It's not as bad of a drive. There's an ambulance in the front. We were able to drive all of the different vehicles. So Larry and I just didn't stay in the handy bus. We went, there's 5 ambulances. So we got to drive all vehicles, which was nice.
So you had groups from other areas that you went together in
Yes, so we had
convoy?
people from Calgary and Lethbridge and Pincher Creek. Pincher Creek had donated a bus. Town of Lethbridge, or City of Lethbridge, donated 2 ambulances. Tabor donated 2 ambulances. And when we mean donated, they actually literally just gave us the ambulances to take. And then of course the handy bus here. So, kind of a funny thing, Mexico does have Walmart and Sam's Club, believe it or not. That was our hotel at Navajoa. It wasn't too bad.
Hard to take.
Oh yeah, it was really tough. So then our last was from Navajo to Mazatlan. And Mazatlan is really it's a beautiful place. I don't know if there's a pointer on this. Yeah, there it is. Right here is a place called Culiacan, and that is where the bus went. That is where our handy bus went. And I'll show you some pictures of the area there.
So you had to turn around and go back?
We did, yeah. Actually, yeah, funny thing. So in Mexico, they don't really have a tax base. Like in Canada, that's mainly the reason why they don't really supply a whole lot of their ambulances, because especially in small communities where these vehicles go, there's no tax base. Government has other things, other concerns that they're looking at, so there's no way that they can get these. I mean, bigger city centers, yes, they do have ambulances, but these places don't. Again, if you look right there, that actually says Culiacan, and then Mazatlan is right up there. So this is in Mazatlan. This is just going into Mazatlan. Again, there's the Cardston handy bus. That Cardston handy bus, that stays on there. That doesn't get taken off. They keep that on there. And we were driving, and in fact, we saw, we were in a bus from Grand Prairie. We saw an ambulance from Edson. We saw another bus from Grand Prairie. All kinds of stuff. So we made it, which was a huge sigh of relief. It was a long drive. We didn't have any problems with the vehicles. The vehicles worked fine. The handy bus was exceptional. It was good. Is there a Dairy Queen in Mexico? Yes, there is. They only serve cold treats, obviously. They don't have the hot treats. So this is Culiacan, and this is the hospital. So the hospital's a little bit different. And this is where our handy bus went in an ambulance. So if you look, and you can't see it, but if you look kind of up in there, there's little signs. That's laboratory, then another one says physiotherapy in Spanish, of course. So it's all outside basically, because it's always nice there. And we were able to give a presentation. I was supposed to give a speech. Luckily, I didn't have to. Right there is the mayor's wife. She attended on behalf of the mayor. These people were very, very gracious and could not express gratitude beyond anything else. They were just so appreciative of everything. We also gave the flag of Cardston that was donated by the town, which we are very, very appreciative of, to the community of Culiacan. We presented it to the hospital as well as to the mayor. And we gave them that, as well as we gave the pins. And so we gave the pins out to them as well as many other people that were in the area. And they wore them, they stuck them right on, and they were very, very appreciative. So I just want to express our gratitude for each of you for allowing, and Marian for giving that to us at no charge, because they were very, very gracious. I can't express in words how grateful they were for the handy bus. It's just a handy bus, and what it's actually used for now is to transport people that need physiotherapy and all this stuff, they do the transportation for that. They don't have a lift. This one has a lift for them. It was working. I was able to show them. We showed them how everything worked. They were clapping their hands and cheering, and it was quite the sight. Again, military presence was there. Oops, let me just go back. We had a little mariachi band because they wanted to thank us, so we had a mariachi band. It was very good. I might have danced. And then, of course, this is the ambulance right there. It was donated by Lethbridge. That
You took those pictures out, I see.
I sure did. Too bad. And then this is the Rotary Club up here. One of the important things about these vehicles is we don't just give the vehicles to them. The Rotary Clubs have to make sure that the vehicles are being maintained and taken care of. If they are not, they will actually take that vehicle away from that community and give it to another community that's in need. So there's a lot of accountability there within Rotary, and it has to be joined with Rotary International. We cannot just go down there and give that. We have to do it with another Rotary Club. This is Larry and I, and those are our translators. And they speak very good English, otherwise we wouldn't have known. This is the mayor of Esquinapa. I don't know what happened there. Okay, mayor of Esquinapa right there. And then that's the Marian right there. He's the CAO for the town of Esquinapa and Pomea. And again, that's the whole group, almost all of the group that went there with us. This is Pomea. This is where an ambulance went from Pincher Creek. Their report. This lady right here, her name is Lynn Brasnet. She's an EMT, and the ambulance that we gave, that was her bus that she drove. And we also gave supplies. These supplies was actually given to us by, I believe, Vauxhall or Vulcan, one of the two communities that gave that to us. And again, Pomea. Again, communities with nothing. So again, I talked a little bit about military presence. This was outside of our hotel room. Some government officials came to the beach to open the beach officially, and there was stuff all over the place. This is us saying goodbye. That's Jim Campbell right there. He's from Lethbridge. This is Martine and Peppy Sand, and these guys they do a lot of work for Rotary within that community, and within all of Mexico. So they find communities that need these vehicles, and they keep in contact with our Rotary district and the district up north. Very, very genuine men. They speak very little English, but they are absolutely genuine and have a lot of connections within Mexico. Super good guys. This is Pancho and Chancho who took us across the border. We're saying goodbye to them. And this is going home. This is a taxi that they have there. It's kind of neat. What's it called, Graham? What's that taxi called right there? It's a Via. There you go. What was it? Umunia. Question. So I just want to explain the bell. The bell is very symbolic of Rotary as well. When I was president, and any president of Rotary Club, they have to take that bell with them and ding it, because that represents the gavel, and that was their bell that they had. So, questions?
Well, I have more comment for you, and great appreciation for the service you gave.
We think, we certainly, I think I speak on behalf of all Rotary members from Rotary Club of Cardston. We thank you for your service that you give as well, and the time that you put in behalf of all of us citizens in the town of Cardston. And we really appreciate, again, the flag and the pins that you've given us. Without that, we wanted to make sure that we kept that alive for them. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. We're a little late, but we have Corporal Laura Hackett from the RCMP that will give us our quarterly report. You have a sheet that was sent to you and given to you. Thank you. Good to see you again.
Yes, nice to see you too, Madam Mayor and council members. What I would like to do as well this evening is I believe that Marian forwarded on to you the annual performance plan for the 2014 and 2015 fiscal year. I'd actually like to, if I can, just go through that with you, and then if there's any questions or anything at the end, I'll definitely be open to questions. in regards to that. Before I get started on that, though, I have a little bit of information I'd like to let you know, and that's in regards to the detachment manpower. I know at one point there was a committee or a subcommittee that was inquiring as to the standing in all of that. I'm hoping after I provide this information to you that I can possibly answer any further questions you have. Otherwise, I was in conversation with our district advisory NCO, Staff Sergeant Wade Sparks, and if the committee is still willing, he is willing to come down and speak with you. We currently actually right now have 6 operational constables. Within our organizational chart, we have an allotment for 7, and we're sitting at 6. We had Constable Mike Turner that transferred in from Redwater. He's now active and working within the community. And I just actually found out today that our recruit has been named, and he will actually be graduating from Depot Division here on June 23rd. So he'll be here shortly after. So I would ascertain that by the end of June, the detachment will be up to full complement in regards to the constable frontline members.
That's fantastic.
That's great news.
Good news.
That's good news.
The sergeant is still attempting to sell his house in Manitoba. That is still ongoing. He had an extension on that house sale. And the corporal that is named to come here from Sundry Detachment is currently waiting for his transfer notification. And I can't give you any firm dates on either of those 2 positions. I can tell you, though, that it is my understanding that until both or one of them are here to run the detachment, I will be here as your detachment commander until that time.
We appreciate your presence.
Thank you. So since the addition of Constable Taylor, who transferred in from Redwater, we're now actually able to operate a schedule of 2 members working almost all the time, and that's both days and night shifts. It's my intention to ensure that we have 2 members working night shifts and weekends whenever possible for backup. And this will also enable the members to increase their patrols of the rural areas within the county and provide more police visibility. One last note, a search warrant was actually conducted in Moses Lake just last week by the Blood Tribal Police and our assistants, and an amount of drugs and such were seized. As a result of that, 1 male has been charged with possession of narcotics, and this was a known individual to the members of the Blood Tribal Police, and I believe that his recent arrest and current charges that he's facing will have an impact on the availability of drugs within our community. So that's been taken away, and that's also excellent news. It's my understanding also that since the search warrant was conducted, that he's now been evicted from his housing in Moses Lake. So that's excellent news, I think, for the community as a whole. So I was kind of looking at this annual performance plan and the way our lovely organization puts everything out, and as I'm reading through it, I was quite confused. So what I've done is I've just kind of gone through and put together a Reader Digest version of it, and I'm hoping that's all right. If it's not, let me know and we can go page by page, but if there's any questions at the end of any of it, definitely let me know. So basically within our annual performance plan this year for 2014-2015, the 3 key initiatives that we're going to be looking into is traffic, and that being safety, community safety through crime prevention, as well as police-community relations, basically the visibility of the police. In regards to our traffic initiatives, we're going to be increasing our traffic enforcement and education this fiscal year. Each member of the detachment is going to be responsible for working towards that goal. Last year, the detachment held a goal of 400 written violations. This year, my goal within the detachment is 600. And I want to break that down further to 400 within the town of Cardston, 150 within the county of Cardston, and then 50 within the hamlets, that being Glenwood and Hillsbury, pardon me. We'll also be following the Alberta Traffic Safety Plan calendar, which are for education purposes as well. What that is, for example, July is Motorcycle Safety Month. So while we're doing our education and enforcement initiatives, we would be speaking with people who are operating motorbikes, ensuring that all their equipment is DOT approved, that they have proper driver's license and registration and that for operation of that vehicle. And we're also going to be conducting scheduled check stops within the detachment area. And these are going to be conducted with our neighbors and partners of Blood Tribal Police, as well as commercial vehicle enforcement. And our goal for this fiscal year is going to be 20 check stops within this fiscal year. Not all of them will be in Cardston. Some of them will be in the rural areas, in the county, and in the hamlets. And all of these initiatives we're going to be reporting internally in our patrol logs or on our electronic violation stat sheets, which we've created and we keep in our detachment. I can tell you so far, just from our provincial stats for enforcement, for the month of April, 39 tickets were written within the town of Cardston. The majority of them are being speeding violations, a lot of them in the school zones, and seatbelt violations. It's my hope that with this increased education and enforcement, number one, school zones to me hit home. We have a lot of young children that are running around there, and I don't want accidents and that kind of stuff to happen in those areas. And significant injuries happen when we're not wearing our seatbelts. So I think once we get out there and we start with the education and the enforcement, I expect the numbers will probably go down, which would be fine with me as well. If I don't meet my goal of 400 for the community, that's excellent, because that means that, you know, people are learning and being educated. The other initiative that we have is community safety, crime prevention. I know that when I spoke to you earlier, that panhandling and loitering in the downtown core of Cardston is an extreme concern. And it's a concern for the members of the community for safety as well as interruption of business operations. This fiscal year, our detachment has implemented a zero tolerance causes disturbance initiative to address this issue. What that means is that when the police receive a complaint of an individual loitering, panhandling, or interrupting business operations, they're going to be arrested for causing a disturbance. After their arrest, one of the conditions of their release from custody is going to be that they will not be on Main Street, Cardston. In order for this initiative to be successful, the business owners or interrupted persons must be willing to provide statements regarding the circumstances and be willing to attend court if possible. I can tell you at this already that I believe we have 6 individuals that have been charged, and the business owners and the general public have been extremely supportive in providing us the information that we need to proceed. I can tell you that, and I'm sure you're all aware as well, that it's a handful of individuals that are doing the majority of this loitering and panhandling. So it's not going to interrupt the daily operations of the downtown community at all, but I think it will open it up and more people will be able to feel safe and secure while they're doing that. 11 charges already have been laid, so 5 individuals have been charged for causing a disturbance and have also been facing subsequent charges for breaching the release conditions. So it's our hope that once this initiative continues, that the numbers of people loitering around on the Main Street Cardston will decline significantly. And I can tell you, even from just patrolling the downtown core here the last 2 or 3 weeks, that I don't see the same number of individuals just quote-unquote hanging out that I seen when I first got here. So I think the initiative will be successful. As well as that, we're still doing the foot patrols within the downtown core. We're going to work towards doing 75 foot patrols ourselves as police officers and in conjunction with bylaw services and our other partners. And that'll be used for education as well. And we're going to try to do some bike patrols is my hope. I need to see what I have for bike trained members within our detachment. But if I have the manpower, which I do now, and I have the resources available, I would love to see some of our members out on bike patrols early evening on all of the bike paths or footpaths all around the community. That'll definitely add for our ability to be in areas that we can't get to that's only accessible by vehicles. And lastly, our police community relations. We're going to continue to make patrols of the schools within the detachment area, taking the time to speak with both students and teachers to facilitate proactive interaction with the youth. The goal this fiscal year is going to be for 50 school visits. And with the detachment having a complete complement, we're also going to be conducting regular patrols of the rural hamlets. And I'm looking at a minimum of 50 patrols by my members into those areas as well. And I'm hoping to build further relations with the local media and the community and be working on providing timely news releases this fiscal year. basically letting the community know of investigations that we have completed, asking for assistance with investigations through the use of Crime Stoppers, that type of information. And we're also going to be using it to let the public know of current police provincial initiatives. So when those monthly initiatives come out, like the motorbike month, we'll let the general public know and provide some information in that as well. And I'm looking at completing at least 20 news reports within this fiscal year. And we're also going to actively participate in community events and provide informative talks to service groups when requested. I know this year our members have already conducted 3 detachment school visits and spoke with the Scouts group, assisting them in obtaining one of their Scout badges. The members of the detachment are all members of the community, and my intent is to continue to foster that relationship as members of the community.
Thank you so much for your excellent report. It's good to see that there are some very strong initiatives that are put in place, and now that you have almost a better staffing formula, I can see things getting better for the community. The question I have, and maybe Councillor Edmonds, would you like to go ahead?
Well, I'd like to congratulate you on finally catching some of these speeders by the town square.
Thank you.
That's gone on for a long, long time, and people just don't slow down. And my other question is, are we doing any distracted driving things?
Yes,
Because
we are.
people here don't seem to think that is part of our culture.
Yeah, I can tell you that within the month of April anyways, we have written 3 distracted driving tickets.
Good.
Okay. Councillor Bengry?
Corporal Aikett, what's going to happen in the summertime with Waterton Park? Are you going to take any of the members up here to take to Waterton?
No, Waterton Park is actually policed by Pincher Creek,
Okay,
and they bring their own reservist members in to police Waterton.
thank
I
you.
mean, if an emergency or something came up and we needed to assist them, then we would assist them the same we would assist anyone else. Our members here are here, and I'm quite excited that we're going to be up to a full complement for the summer.
Any other questions? Councillor Creed?
Yeah, I had one little concern, but I think you kind of alleviated it. Sometimes when you just set quotas for citations, doesn't actually accomplish the goal. But you said it was a goal, and that you said you would be okay if you didn't meet your goal. So I'm kind of feeling that your idea is just to be more vigilant rather than setting any quotas for citations. Is that?
Absolutely. I mean, if I don't meet that expectation or whatever I've set, then I'll be happy.
Yeah.
Because that'll mean that, you know what, the education aspect of things worked. We don't have to write a ticket every time we're pulling someone over. There's an education as well as a punitive measure that's involved in all of them.
Councillor Peavoy?
Yeah, and then just the one thing that stood out for me, the roadblocks. Last year you did 3, you're trying to do maybe 20 this year. Check stuff, sorry, thank you.
We don't like roadblocks.
No.
Yeah, there was that.
Check stuff. Is there like a success, kind of rubric that you use if you set it up and you didn't have any citations over the last 3, you just kind of realize, you know what? We don't need to do these anymore, we're wasting people's time, not catching anybody in any negative behavior.
A lot of it too, though, is just, it's visibility at the same time, right? I mean, it's almost an expectation within Alberta for people to see at special events. I mean, May long weekend, June long weekends, they expect police to be out doing check stops. So it's not always liquor violations. I mean, it's registration, insurance, driver's licenses. You would be amazed the number of arrest warrants, those types of things that we get at those. And if we're in an area and you know what, there's no violations, excellent. But the community is still seeing that we're out there, so it gives them a sense of security as well, knowing that we are in the area.
3 felt very secure for me last year, but you do a great job.
I may want to ask you something also. You talked about the cleaning up of Main Street and your efforts that are going on. There was at one point talk that you would have some some volunteers from the fire department to come and help you. Has that happened at all?
I haven't seen that we've had any active joint foot patrols. I know that in consultation with Marian, we had everything in place to do that. And I have to be totally honest, I haven't checked the sign-in book to see how many have occurred, but I don't believe that many have. I know that Lloyd Bylaw Services has been extremely active in his foot patrols, and I know that we have. I don't know if that joint initiative is still as active as it initially was when we were looking at starting it.
All right, so that's maybe something we need to pursue.
Yeah.
Okay. Another question I have for you, if you don't mind. You're saying because of the cleanup of the community, some arrests have been made, etc. I'm wondering, are we displacing those people to other areas in a community?
I don't believe we are. Like I say, it's, from everything that I can see in the couple of months that I've been here, it very much is a handful of people. I would say between 10 to 12 people that are the people that are continually doing the panhandling or hanging out or doing the loitering. They're not residences of Cardston. They have homes in that outside of the town itself. So I don't believe that we're displacing them that way. And I don't believe that by the initiative and the way that we're doing it, I don't believe that we're dissuading anybody from coming into Main Street either.
Okay. Those are good information. Thank you very much. Councillor Bengry?
One question, Corporal Leggett. When you move these people along, where do they go?
Home?
If they don't have any homes, which a lot of them don't have, where do they go?
Well, I know that the drop-in center in Moses Lake is open for an additional month.
Okay.
I mean, that's definitely an initiative that we can look at in maybe some joint sports, if there's something with Blood Tribal and or the resources within the Blood Reserve itself for these individuals. That's honestly a question I can't answer. I can work on, assisting them and providing them with opportunities, but I can't facilitate housing or anything for them. That would be a blood initiative.
I have one more question. In some communities, there is a community consultative group that is in place. This does not exist in our town. Is that something that as a town we should be looking at? I understand that those groups are formed with volunteers from the community and try to represent the different groups, the different stakeholders of the town. And then the RCMP in no small town head those committees.
Correct.
So is that something that we should be looking at?
I believe there is a definite benefit to that. I attended a meeting in Standoff, which was all of the social agencies that operate and look after various activities, I guess, for each of the smaller community, i.e. Moses Lake, Laverne, and stuff like that. I know that they are presenting it's a 2-day workshop that they're going to be presenting in Moses Lake, and I made some connections with individuals from that group in Standoff. I was speaking with Horton after the meeting, and that was something that I was actually considering, is maybe forming a group with Horton, because he really knows the people of Moses Lake, getting Blood Tribal involved, some people from the Social Services Network in Standoff as well. I guess there's a representative for the community of Moses Lake, an individual that kind of looks after the requirements or the wishes of the people of Moses Lake, forming that group to see what we can do to assist. I know that when the seminar, and I don't have the exact dates for you, Madam Mayor, and I apologize for that, but I know in this 2-day seminar, they're going to be looking at the key topics of discussion for that was alcohol and solvent abuse, anger management, and self-esteem were the topics that they were going to be speaking on. And I know that because a lot of the individuals that we deal with in the town of Cardston live in Moses Lake, the coordinator of the seminar has forwarded to me the pamphlets outlining the seminar and the dates that it's going to be occurring. What my members are also going to be doing when we're doing our foot patrols here in the next little while, now that I have these pamphlets, is giving them to the people. It's not all enforcement and, you know, we don't want to see you, we want to help them as well. So we're going to be handing out these pamphlets to them to hopefully try to encourage them to go to the seminar. We can't make them go, but we can definitely provide them the information to do so.
So that will be an initiative that we could look at for future.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. If there is no more questions, we want to thank you for this excellent presentation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And one last thing, I would like to thank you, the town of Cardston, for helping me get my flag back up on my flagpole. That was very muchly appreciated. Our flag rope actually broke, and I didn't have any way of figuring it out. And your lovely town works people came over with their tree picker and got that back up for me. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. We have one more presentation, and we actually back on time, which is amazing. Okay, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce your name properly. Eugene Bell? All right. So,
Sorry, if I might interrupt for just a moment.
go ahead.
The annual, what do you call it? Sorry, annual performance plan. If we can get a motion, I missed that.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
To approve that, and then I can sign it off.
Okay, so we need, Councillor Bengry, would you like to make that motion?
And it's a performance?
Report, annual report.
Performance plan.
Annual performance plan.
I'll make a motion that we move to accept the annual performance plan as presented by Corporal Aketh to this council.
Thank you very much. Any further questions? Think none, all in favor? Thank you. All right, Jan, thank you, bye.
Thank you.
If you like to come. Jan Bam is there to talk about the Community Wellness Park. That is an interesting initiative. I'm quite familiar with those. When I was in Europe, I took pictures here and there because I found that very interesting and great for the community and for the people that were trying to improve their health. And in fact, I found a lot of youth were using them, and that pleased me very much. So go ahead.
Well, thank you for allowing me to come and share this with you. I'm afraid to say that I had wanted to do this much earlier and just haven't organized myself, and I hope that I can present this appropriately because I still feel like there's things I could have organized better to present this. And there is a sales rep who would have done this, but he was unable to come tonight. So it is kind of put together probably very amateurly, but we'll just give it a go here. But I moved here from Nelson 3 years ago, and we had one of these in our community. And it was on our lakefront walk, and it was where the soccer fields were. And it just became one of those very interactive additions to the community, and I just found that it was something where I would not pass by. I could absolutely not pass by, and I just want to leap on it. And it wouldn't just be myself, it would be each member of my family, old and young. And it gave me an opportunity to meet other people in the community that I likely would not have met. So, and I was working over in McGrath and saw that they had one. And I thought, well, McGrath has one, then Cardston needs to have one. And so here I am. And so maybe just to introduce it, and the, I guess the organization that I've contacted, that I believe I looked at the apparatus that was in Nelson and got their name from that, so I've contacted them, but there may be others that install these as well. So they have an info commercial, and I think we should probably just watch that first, and then I can expound on that after.
Thank you.
So just to warn everybody, we've been having some issues with the sound. It won't be perfect. We are getting it looked at. Just
We've
forewarned.
heard those kind of things in the past.
Here we go.
It's all right, we'll
It's not
see the
it's not your
picture.
fault, Graham.
Just so long we understand the gist of it, it'll be great.
Yeah, if they're just able to see.
The pictures are fine, they speak for
Apparatus.
themselves.
I can't project it and get sound out of this at the same time.
That's all right.
Our actual users might not look like this, though.
This is true.
I was thinking about me. Big Daddy.
Kids absolutely love this.
This is your committee, Dennis.
So this is in Red Deer?
You're gonna have to lead by example.
This one, I believe, is this company. Right now, they're speaking to the warranties, which I believe are 20 years, and just some of the components that are critical to the apparatus.
Like the instructions.
Yes, they have
Instructions,
well-written
follow.
instructions, cautions, certainly all those things that you want to, you make available to anybody who jump on any of those.
The fun things that don't take very much space.
They don't.
And that is something that is refreshing when you look at those pieces of equipment.
And he winds up with
You
the
could actually use
the
these in the
sales.
wintertime too?
Yeah.
It might be cold to sit on.
I was gonna say.
Got your tongue hanging out, you'll be freezing.
Thank you, Graham. We did our best. So I have, in investigating this, of course, how do you do this? He sent me a price list, and there is an average about about 1,500 to 3,000, I think, depending on the
Per apparatus.
yes, per apparatus. We have not discussed installation because it becomes a matter of the budget, and it becomes a matter of whether we would like to do that independent of the company. In my mind, and in talking with the sales rep, it would be advisable to have them do it, because there have been problems that have occurred because they are not experienced enough to install these properties. So then it would be, let's do less of apparatus so we can have it installed properly, is how I see that.
So you want to talk a little bit about the financing aspect?
So
Because you come here with an idea, but that idea cannot move forward without money.
That's right. So in my research, I found out that there is a couple of grants. One of them is the Alberta Blue Cross Health and Wellness Grant. And I was trying to print that off, and of course, Murphy's Law printer doesn't work, so I couldn't bring that with me. But it is $1 million that they have are trying to distribute on over a 5-year plan, and it's to support health and wellness. And they are selecting 4 communities per year. And I had worried, because I quickly went over this before I knew that I was presenting, and thought that we had to have the application in by June, but we make applications beginning June. So it's not so pressing for time now. And so some of the communities that have already been awarded are Poplar Park, which is in Edmonton, Westmount Charter, Middle High School, Cold Lake, and the town of Blackfall, and they've had that installed in their Abbey Center, and I'm thinking it's their municipal rec location. So those are 4 that have already been awarded. I don't know when they began, but there is another year available, and I'd love to be able to approach them and make application for this. There is another one that is designed for this. It's with the Habitat systems, and they also, and I'm wondering if this is gaming money. I'm not exactly sure. I haven't investigated that one. Blue Cross was the one that I had wanted to approach initially, because I felt that their initiatives were matching the same that I felt our community would be.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So those are not matching grants, those are pure grants?
I believe they are.
So, and you would be willing to write the grant?
I would be willing to do that. And so I've been chatting this up in the community a little bit, mostly amongst my family, but I've been sharing somewhat. And so we've been talking about some of the ideas that we could put forth in the community to help fundraise. I personally take the position that I don't think this should come for nothing. It should be something that the community initiates some effort to have in our community. So we've been talking about ways that we can fundraise to do that. And so what has not happened yet is a committee has not been formed or anything. This is just me talking to family and friends and just saying, what do you think? And so this is the first step to bring it to you. Now, when I had spoken to, was it Marian? That she had asked me about the location, and that was a big thing that I was had contemplated, because my children are active in athletics in this community, and I remembered where I had enjoyed it, and was along the lakefront, and so it seemed really nice if it had been down by the river, but I just didn't feel that was the appropriate spot. So I live up near Town Square, and I just kept imagining that being at it, and perhaps it could be in the four locations along the way. And of course, driving down here, seeing many people walking around Temple Square, they could just go that one extra block or two and take it all in and enjoy that. So what I love about it is just it's so engaging for all ages. But of course, it is about a budget and how do you find funds and a location that's appropriate. And so those are the things that if it was an idea that you embraced, that then we would begin to try to explore, to come back and say this is what we've discovered.
Okay. Questions?
I've got a couple of questions. Can I call you Jan?
Sure.
That's my wife's first name.
Sure.
Liability issues.
That's a really good question.
Yeah. Is there, we have to look at liability because people exercising, they can go beyond that, have heart attacks and strokes, and also they can get hurt using the equipment if it's being used improperly. You know, just to step onto a piece of equipment and think that you're going to exercise is, you got to familiarize yourself with that equipment. The second one is, do these parks have supervisors?
No.
No.
Then, in conjunction with that question, if they're not supervised, who handles the roughies, the kids that are just basically running wild over this equipment? I mean,
Well, it's a very good question. And I haven't run into that because of the many times that I was around them or they were, privy to the use of them, because they're certainly visible enough that you can see others using them from the park that I was at. It didn't seem that they were ever abused, they were just used. But it's a very good question because we run into this as parents all the time with kids at schools and waivers, things that we have to sign. But I wish Ben was here, who would have presented his equipment. He'd probably have an answer for you.
see, I can see one of these parks. I've been to the one in Red Deer, Because my daughter lives in Sylvan Lake, which is just west of Red Deer. And it's a tremendous thing. I mean, it's a fantastic park. But a proposed site, I like your idea of the town square. And I sort of like the idea of the swimming pool, next to the swimming pool. Now, I don't know what is in store for that, but at the same token, if you put a park down there, you could almost fence it for the night, and you could take, you know, you got the traffic of the swimming pool that sort of overlooks that situation.
Protect it
Yeah.
a little better. So I'm good. I mean, I like it down there, I really do. I feel that it captures the whole health and wellness and
Yeah.
community sense.
Well,
down there as
you're
well.
coming right off the walking trail too. It's
Yeah.
right close to the walking trail.
Now, the other thing I didn't mention I was going to get to is I presented this to the high school at the parent council meeting, because in my investigations of the grant, they do speak to schools because they, you know, this, and when I spoke to parent council and the teachers there, they thought this would fit in with their goals as well. So if there could be some overlap, how I would be working to, you know, maybe that helps with funding, getting your grants, I don't know, but I'm thinking there's a good chance it could help.
Marian, if you don't mind, I would like to ask you this question. Because it is a health and wellness, and it fits in with the Parks and Recs, and fits in a little bit also with the idea of the school that we're working with, we're partnering with, is that something that we can kind of look at, or where Jan could do a presentation to that Parks and Rec board coming up? Is that something that could be maybe useful for us to push further?
That was actually my first thoughts when Jan came and talked to me, that it would be more appropriate to be dealt with through the Parks and Recreation Committee. The difficulty is they only meet quarterly.
That's
and
right.
They just met.
Correct, yes.
I believe, though, that we could form a group to assist Jan
Yeah.
through that committee.
Right.
If council deems this something that you would be willing to allow the land to be used for. One of the things that we talked about was, could it be incorporated in maybe a number of the playgrounds in town?
Yes.
So it would just be
Which is
become
already
part
there.
of our playground system.
Right.
And that would spread it out throughout the community, and maybe could expand over time to be a really good thing for the community, I believe. Just one other thing to speak to Councillor Bengry's concern about the liability. I haven't checked into it, but my initial instinct would be that it wouldn't create any more liability than any playground equipment causes for us. You know, there's always a risk when people are using those types of facilities in a park area, so I think children probably have more risk on a monkey bar than the average citizen would have on this type of equipment. So.
Just to speak to that point quickly, in the infomercial, he does speak to the range of age, and it is recommended for 13 and above, and it will say that on the equipment, so that if there are small children there, it's visible to them, and if parents are there, that they are watching their kids.
Yeah, and it's those parks are interesting because they have a big disclaimer all the way to use the equipment, and I found that rather interesting.
Just so you're aware, Marian, we decided to have an extra meeting this summer, so we're going to actually meet July the 7th, rather than until the end of summer.
So, but the grant needs to be written in June. So, Councillor Bengry, and then we need to make a decision as to the location and if we want to pursue that issue. So,
Are we wanting to make a decision on the location here?
No.
I think we have to.
We don't have a lot of time.
Marian, maybe Marian will give us some direction here.
I agree with Councillor Barfuss. I think that you would, if you support the idea, it would be in principle.
A subcommittee.
And then allow the committee to establish the appropriate location.
Okay.
And, you know, you'd have to come back to council for the final approval, but I
Makes
think allow
sense.
them to go through the process.
Okay, so what you need an approval from council to form a subcommittee to assist Jan.
or just approve the idea in principle and allow
I
a
approve the
committee
idea in
to-
principle,
Yeah,
okay.
that's what I think.
I'll make that
Councillor Bengry.
motion to approve the idea and principle
Okay.
of a public,
Gym apparatus.
Outdoor fitness park.
outdoor fitness park, and move it to the Parks and Recreation Committee for their, whatever you want to call it, discussion. yeah.
Discussion, yeah, we would talk
The
about it.
problem is the grant. July is 1 month after the grant can be written.
But we
So-
might possibly not get anything this year, but, you know,
I don't think it hurts to move forward and to try and get that grant.
I think we should.
Make application. I think we should.
Dennis, would you be able to help me and find
Sure.
any assistant?
I'll talk with some of the parks guys right
In case
away.
there's things from the town that I need
Yeah.
questions
Ma-
answered.
Yeah.
Councillor Bengry, would it be all right if we just put it in principle and let administration and
that's what I
and
said.
do that?
Yep.
Maybe remove the condition of the July Parks and Recs. Marian?
I think the way the motion was formed would be okay if it's the intent that Jan be able to move forward with grant applications. But I still think it's appropriate to present to the Parks and Recreation Committee.
Okay,
Um,
so how do you want that motion to be spelled out this way and retain it this way? Okay, all
I
right.
think it gives a clear direction that it be referred to approve in principle and it be referred to the Parks and Recreation. That gives Jan the opportunity to apply for the grant and move forward.
Okay,
And one
so
more thing.
Jan would do the grant, let me understand the timeline. We approve in principle, Jan, you will start to write the grant and present it, send it off,
Mhm.
and then you will do your presentation to Parks and Recs in July. Okay.
And this is
So
called an
that's the way
outdoor
it
fitness
is.
park?
An outdoor fitness park.
I have a question for administration, if I may.
Sure.
Is this something maybe Jeff would be willing to look at and assist with?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
We would assign someone on administration to work with Jan. We also have some ideas about if it requires say a nonprofit status or something for application of the grant. We have some organizations in town that we have ideas that could actually be
Yeah.
the applicant.
Sure.
Maybe not do
Yeah, that was the question I had. You know, Jan wouldn't qualify just because she wants to have it. It would have to be through a foundation, wouldn't it?
It depends on the grant.
Depends on the nature
Yeah.
of how the grant.
All right,
Okay.
so thank you very much. We have a motion on the table, so any more questions? All in
Would I be able
favor?
to just ask one thing?
So go ahead, Jan.
When an initiative is brought forward like this, and you see it be benefiting our community and also the First Nations community, is there anything that has to formally happen to their community as well?
You can do a presentation to their council, but the nature of the government is different. Theirs is federal, ours is municipal, and that is quite difficult to join the two. But to do a presentation does not hurt.
Is the grant a provincial grant?
Yes, it is.
Then there's
Yeah.
your problem, because
Madam Mayor,
they can't apply because they're under federal jurisdiction.
it might be to the benefit of Parks and Recreation if they would ask for a county councillor maybe to sit on this committee, you know, because county residents could be utilizing this equipment in this park.
There is county representation on our Parks and Recreation.
Parks and Rec already.
All right,
Thank you.
so all in favor? Thank you. There you go. Thank you so much for
Thanks,
taking
Jen.
such initiative for such a wonderful project. Appreciate your help.
Well, I'm excited, so.
From volunteers, we can go and do marvelous things in the community. Thank you.
Recess.
Yeah.
5 minutes.
We need to take a 5-minute recess because.
Just because.
That's all you get.
Wendy, welcome. So if you don't mind.
I'll go to recess.
Thank you. We need a
to make a
motion to
motion to
recess.
I'll make a motion that we take a 5-minute recess.
Okay, Councillor, all in favor, please vote.
Look at, that's all I have.
All right, so welcome,
Do we need a motion?
Wendy. We need to have a motion to reconvene. Councillor Peavoy, motion to reconvene. And Wendy Creed is here to talk to us about backyard hands and our desire to
We need a vote to.
have.
Reconfirm.
Oh, we need to vote on the motion. All in favor? I love those councillors that are on the ball when I am not. All right, go ahead, Wendy.
When I heard that you were thinking about doing a plebiscite on backyard hens, I was a little concerned simply because I know that none of us really know what would happen in Cardston if we did it. And I've seen it be kind of a divisive issue, and that really bothers me. And especially I've noticed that this council really works hard to try to not, to go really deep into everything and understand everything so that they don't have things that are divisive. I really appreciate that. And so as I was thinking about what could we do so that we honestly understood what we were talking about when we do make that decision. And what I felt strongly that I was now in a position to do, which I wasn't before, is to start a pilot program. A pilot program that would probably take a couple of years and 10 to 20 families that would be willing to test out some of the different things that we've put forth. What I've done is taken a whole bunch of different towns, what they required and what they have done and how it has turned out, and studied that to see what would work for Cardston, or what's at least a good place to start. This one of Vancouver's was so lengthy and so legalized that I was not surprised that by the time they put in all the inhumane things and couldn't kill any of the chickens, that they would have lots of chickens running all over the place. Well, maybe not all over the place, but Bountiful instead has their total, on just a little over one page, all the instructions for how to make it work. And I've noticed it works there because we've been down there where my daughter is, and she is doing it. But I think what some of these kind of things forget is that done properly, we actually follow the natural cycle, the natural laws that God has given us. He said that the beasts of the field and the fowls of the air, and that which cometh of the earth is ordained for the use of man, for food and for raiment, and that we might have in abundance. When we take a chicken and use those natural eggs, they're one of the very best protein that it can possibly be. And then as we give them our scraps and give them the bounties out of our garden, the extra and the grains, they make something really beautiful. But even better than that, the families that take care of them, the young people learn responsibility and where their food comes from and food to give thanks to for it. And then as we take the compost and the manure and mix it and use it with one of the very best nitrogens and compost that there is from chickens. And if you have only 6 little hens, that's just exactly right for a backyard garden. So it's a whole beautiful dance, but if you take out any of the parts, it can become like Vancouver has. hard to deal with and not a good situation. So what I really felt strongly about is that I would be willing to donate my time to teach, to document, to report, and then to come back and talk to you about what we have done, and to inspect and keep, so that there would be no expense to the town and minimal enforcement done. And I thought if we could have 2 or 3 councillors that would volunteer to be a part of that program, it would make it even more useful, because they could be right on the forefront to say, does it really work or doesn't it? Now, I went ahead and put together, by distilling all the things in all the reports of towns that I've noticed that does work, and putting some of those together, I've come up with some points that I feel would work here. But again, I have not tested them in Cardston. And that's what I'm asking for, is that we have some time to take those few families, try these out, add to the rules if we need to, delete some of the rules if we need to, but find out what really works here. So I would like to give these to you and then let you make that decision.
Thanks, man.
Wendy, can I ask you a question, if you don't mind?
Yes.
You very much stress natural laws, you very much stress the proper use of that backyard hen. From raising the egg, I would imagine, to harvesting the meat, if I may speak so.
Oh, thank you, I forgot that minor
Could you
detail.
maybe talk about that aspect?
I've heard some people concerned about what we would do with the hens. And I think you kind of have to have experienced it to understand that you don't just go out and chop your heads off or whatever. Whenever you gather an egg, you talk to the chickens and thank them for that egg. Tell them how much you appreciate it. You're talking to them. You're part of their lives. You're not a threat. And they learn to love you and to trust you. And you always thank the Creator when you eat those beautiful eggs. Now when it's time and they're not laying anymore, and you can tell by the vent that they're 2 fingers or less, instead of the good old 3 fingers, it means they're laying once a day, then it's time that they be retired, because they have fulfilled the measure of their creation. So when you do that reverently as well. You go out, you put them in your arms, you talk to them and you tell them, you have fulfilled the measure of their creation. Well done. Now I need to send you back to Heavenly Father. And you very quickly and efficiently, and they're gone. And they don't even struggle when they trust you and they know that this is part of their creation. So, yeah, I know that some people have had bad experiences with that, but it's because it's not been done in thankfulness. And then that meat, even if it's an old bird, can make phenomenal broth, especially if you set it in vinegar and cover it with water and let it set for a few hours and then cook it very slowly for a couple of days. You get all of the nutrition back out of those bones, the calcium and the minerals. Put some good garden vegetables in with it, and you get something that really heals and takes care of our lives. Are there any other questions?
Question. So I was looking at number 8. Any coop shall be located at least 20 feet from any primary resident. According to the animal bylaw here, we're looking at 125 feet. So I'm just, concerned that kind of distance might be a little bit too close.
That's an excellent, excellent
120,
question.
150.
And
It says here, Article 2, under the municipal bylaw here, number 1604, so no person shall keep any wildlife or domestic animals or poultry in any part of the corporate limits of the town of Cardston without obtaining a license. Okay, and then it goes on to say that would have to be, it couldn't be any closer than 125 feet to a residential house.
so, Dennis, do you know where I came up with that?
Pardon me?
Do you know where I came up with that number?
The 20-foot number.
I came up with that from going through a whole bunch of cities.
Mhm.
When you look at, like, a big dog, like some of them, a lot of them we have in town,
Mm-hmm.
makes a lot more smell than 4 to 6 little ones.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe this is too close. Maybe it is. And
Well,
that's-
according to the bylaw, it is too close.
Yeah,
No.
and the reason I.
Bylaw prohibits hens, so we're looking.
Yeah, I realize that, but if they did,
So
it would have to be at least 125 feet away.
Well, unless we change the bylaw.
Let's change the bylaw.
Right,
So
yeah, right.
I'm saying, you don't know, I don't know, let's find out.
Yeah,
City after city is telling me that's perfectly legitimate and works very well.
although it does
But
say.
I don't know.
It does say in here, under Article 2, Section 2, special permits may be allowed if a distance of less than 125 feet of any dwelling is requested, so.
Any other questions for Wendy?
Just one.
Councillor Peavoy?
If we were to initiate a pilot program like this, and you're saying we take on, say, was it 20 families in your proposal? 10 to 20? If we had 40 families apply, how would you and, say, your committee sort through and select the 20 families that would participate?
That's an excellent question. I never thought of it. I really, honestly, that didn't even come into my brain. You got a good idea.
There's always names in a hat and you pull. But anyway.
A follow-up question to that is, you mentioned that it wouldn't, that the goal of the pilot program would be to kind of limit how much enforcement would be needed from the town. Are you implying that you, in this program, would kind of take on the responsibility for?
Here's what I see. If
Following up.
I'm teaching them and I'm going and checking how it is and helping them get those coops set up and helping them find the chickens and all those kind of things, I'm going to pretty well know what's going on.
So I guess what I'm asking is, if they're not compliant to your program, you just say, I'm sorry, but we're pulling your participation, and then you kind of shut them down, confiscate their chicken. I mean, I don't know. Request that they turn their chickens over to a more
I feel
responsible.
like if we teach
Let me know.
people right, usually they do pretty good, especially if they know we're going to be there. This is a pilot. If you ever want this to continue, you better be sure we do it right. I think we're going to have some pretty good
Chicken man.
pretty good help. But those are all great things, and that's another reason why it'd be great to have 2 or 3 counselors, if there's any that are willing to do that, just so that they can bring it back more often and make sure that I'm straight, because I've never done a pilot program with chickens before.
And then just one final section on that. If there were complaints from maybe some neighbors or whatever, I'm guessing they would probably come to the town. They wouldn't know who else to call. So they'd call the town and say there's a problem. Are you proposing that you'd be available, that the town could call you and then you could go kind of?
I certainly would be willing to do that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
That's great.
That's going to be absolutely imperative. The neighbors have got to all agree before, you'll notice on there, before we even let them do the pilot.
Councillor Bengry?
Wendy, you mentioned in your presentation that you could use the chicken coop run and stuff collecting in it in your compost. That can't be used for a minimum of 2 years because it's so hot. So what are you going to do with
It's
that?
on how you use it. I know how to do it. Trust me, I've been teaching gardening classes for, I don't know how many years.
And then number 2, it says an agreement signed by any neighbors touching the property. Now, that means immediately adjacent to the property
Yeah, that's what.
and to the back of the property?
I think anybody who might possibly be affected by noise or smell or anything like that has any concerns. But chickens are quiet enough.
Well, the wind never blows in Cardston, so what are you going to do about that neighbor that's
3 houses down?
to the east of your chicken coop, you know?
They will smell it for 2 minutes while you clean your coop as you pull it out. That's the only time even those that smell it.
Okay, if there are not any further questions, we would like to thank you, Wendy, for your presentation, and we will discuss that later as a council.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your presentation and your interesting ideas. All right, so I see that Noel is there. Marian when is dinner going to
Jeff
be?
has gone to get dinner, so if you want to move through some of the other items and then we can...
Okay, all right, so we have to go back to...
Have we done
Request.
the minutes yet?
Yeah,
We approved the minutes?
We are at 7.
7A.
7A.
And it's 7.
All right, so here you heard the presentation and the request from Delbert Bizard of Chief Mountain Gas Co-op for us to start to look at the what he perceived a negative impact of our campground on his operation of his campground. As he well noted, those are 2 different kettle of fish that don't even equate or are not even comparable. There is one point that is made in a report. We do not have any recollection of any deals that were made with previous administration regarding the usage of Lee Creek Campground or of Chief Mountain. All we know that is a fact that is in 1979, the campground for the Chief Mountain Co-op was designed for larger rigs and essentially commercial rigs for teams or groups that were coming to town to do some work in the fields or around the area. The fact that we have also large sites in town is by the sheer fact that we have the large campground, the larger pads that were there at the Reunion Center. The only thing that the town has done is not to add to those pads, but to improve the siting of those pads. That's all what happened. We cannot tell people who come to town which campground to choose. That choose what they feel is more favorable or applicable to their need or we can't tell people what to do. If they choose, well, in that case, there is fair game. And as Delbert Beezer said, yes, we do send them the overflow. The reality is that many of those people who come and go visit the Chief Mountain campground with all its facility, they turn around and very often come back to our campground asking for a hookup kind of site, because I still prefer the atmosphere and the way our campground is. So there's not much we can do about that part. Last year, when there was work that was done on the road going to that campground, we indeed compensated the campground for loss of business, but it was a fair reason for that. That the business is still going down, obviously is not due to the street, is now due to the sheer fact that people have found a better venue and we can't control that.
I pull a trailer a lot, and I stay in one campground a lot. And just down the road, a half a mile away from this campground, is another campground. But the one that I stay in is filled to capacity all the time. The other campground doesn't have the amenities that this one that I stay in has. It doesn't have a pool, doesn't have a playground for the kids, it doesn't have a whole lot of things. If I look at our campground, the town-owned campground, we have playground, we have horseshoes, we have laundry facilities, we have shower facilities. We have not done anything, like you said, Mayor, to the reunion center pads to enhance them. Only the operator has made some differences down there in the reunion center places to have some pull-through sites. Now, if I came to Cardston and stayed in either one of those places, or both of them, I know where the next time I'd come to Cardston I'd stay, and it would be in the Lee Creek Campground because of the atmosphere.
Amenities.
Well, the atmosphere, the location, it's close to the golf course, it's close to the downtown, it's close to the restaurant. All those kind of things add up to where you're going to stay. And you cannot dictate tourists where they want to park their trailer or their RV.
The Chief Mountain Gas Co-op, they don't have showers, right?
I do not know what they offer. This
No.
is a full.
They have washers, but I don't think they have showers.
Yes. Councillor Tweed?
I'm just going to read one little paragraph and then comment on it. Because there is a possibility of, I'll read the paragraph. It says, we feel that this is not fair to our company as a tax-paying business to have to compete with tax dollars for business. He says, we advertise, put up signage and even tried lower rates than Lee Creek, but it seems a losing battle financially and morally. The valid point could be that if we were subsidizing the campground, competing with private business, I don't believe we subsidize the campground.
No, we do not.
So in that case, I don't think that would be a valid point. But like I say, if we were subsidizing the campground, then that would be say, yeah, we're competing with private business by subsidizing with tax code.
We don't subsidize. Go ahead.
Councillor Edmonds?
I drove down there tonight, I couldn't remember exactly how it was set up. And if you had a large trailer, you would have problems getting it in there. The other thing that struck me is it looks more like a storage yard, because they got barbed wire on the top of the fence to stop people from getting in. The area doesn't make you want to say, I'll stay there, that looks great. And I think if you build a better mousetrap, you catch all the mice. And all they have is just a basic yard with a bit of gravel. No, there's no pads.
Yeah, it's gravel.
It's gravel. with a little bit of the grass and the table, and a stand for your power hookup. If they want to get the visit, they need a better mousetrap.
All right, so if I have the right sense around this table,
This is a mute.
we do not buy into the argument.
Well,
All right.
I think it's just.
So-
I would say that he's got a legitimate point that from a capital perspective, that Lee Creek has been subsidized because it was built by the town. But from an operational standpoint, it's not.
Correct.
Yeah.
And here we're looking at operation.
Well, yes and no, they haven't put the capital in there. It'll never be what Lee Creek is, because they're never gonna spend that kind of money to.
Yeah.
It's not big enough either.
And it's not big enough. No, that's right.
Yeah, well,
Well, if we had an agreement, if we had in our hands an agreement between the town and Chief Mountain Gas Co-op, then we would have something that we could,
yeah, we have.
you know, accept, reject, or work on as far as I'm concerned. But we do not have that agreement in hand. I don't know where it is, what it is, or anything like that, so.
Okay. Marian?
Just for clarification, we researched from 1989 through 1995-ish, all minutes, all documentation, anything that we had access to, and could find no formal agreements. We found a plan for basically an outline of what was going to happen with the campground and the park system, but there's no reference in that in any way to do with Chief Mountain. There's no reference in the minutes or anything.
So, Marian, we as a council are not willing to move forward with this item.
Just table it.
So, no, it's not a tabling. We do not need to take a motion. We only need to direct administration to write a reply to Mr. Wiese regarding the council position.
Council position
To
there was
not-
a couple of suggestions there, but one I believe was that the town would would actually lease the facility.
No.
So you just want us to respond that
That
we're
the
not
answer-
interested in pursuing this.
In pursuing the avenues. Thank you. All right,
If I
so,
may, just one thought on that. We're not sure what the terms of, like, he didn't outline what he had in mind. I'm just wondering, like Councillor Bengry was pointing out, if we just went back to him and requested, hey, what did you have in mind? What do you want us to consider?
Well, you put in this letter, though, Councillor Peavoy.
Right.
no, but,
Lease it or.
Well, yeah, but for $1, or, $1 a year or whatever, I don't know the terms. It might be, it
Well-
might make sense.
Okay.
There might be an agreement, like a win-win here that.
well, you know something? I understand your position of the win-win, but I cannot see it being a win-win at this time, because the win-win would come, we should be considered if really the town had a true part in him losing business. But we do not consider that given a choice to customer is something we can regulate. Neither can we, if he calls it competition, call competition a dirty word. It is not. In fact, you just have to read the 13 Ways to Kill a Community. Kill the competition, you kill your town. So if we understand those principles, is there something else that needs to be looked at? Personally, I do not see it. So maybe let me have a sense around the table who would like to pursue this issue or
Put a motion forward.
put a motion forward. Yes.
My thoughts are actually when Delbert mentioned that they would be considering closing it. If I was running the place, that's
Close it.
what I would do.
Exactly right.
Because the capital cost to get it to where it would be someplace people wanted to stay,
It's
they're not
huge.
going to spend that.
No.
The town's sure not going to spend that.
And for the
I don't think
town,
there's anything left
and
to,
for the town to have that place means that our operator has to look at something else. I honestly cannot see that.
Right. Currently, and maybe this is a question for administration, but currently we don't charge property tax for our own campground. Is that right?
No, we do not.
So, but we are charging the co-op for property taxes on that campground.
Yes.
So, I mean, that kind of
But that's his business.
seems
It
like an
shows-
ongoing conflict of, competition, I'm just saying.
But competition is not a dirty word if you want to call it competition.
I agree. I just, I want us to be sensitive to the fact that, by us putting capital investment into a campground and then basically making it tax-free.
it is effectively subsidized
It's
by not
effectively
having
shutting
taxes.
down all campgrounds that pay
Okay.
taxes and can't compete with
Okay.
our capital investment.
Let me put it this way. Our campground was there to accommodate tourism. That was the reason the campground was designed.
It's a great
Okay.
campground.
Then there was a reunion center that was there to accommodate tourism with bigger rigs. It happened to be that those bigger rigs might have gone to that area or might not if they were self-sustaining. So from a choice perspective, I don't see it.
Mayor, I've got to correct you on the reunion center. That was a former trailer park
Yes,
that
it was.
closed down, and those service pads
Were kept open.
were kept open. or,
Yes.
Well, kept in line. And we
Yes.
just utilized them for the reunion center campground or the overflow
The
campground.
Right.
infrastructure was in place.
Yes, everything was in place.
So we benefited from that in
Right.
some ways. Okay,
Well, I guess
Let's put
if
it-
we're looking for, a recommendation, I would still like to hear more from Delbert about what he's looking for. I mean, I think that he's been a little maybe unclear as to what he's looking for. I think he's fishing, and he's hoping we'll come up with, shooting for the stars or something. But if his request was simple and didn't cost us anything or whatever, that it was something that we might be able to grant, I'd like to maybe hear him out a little more.
Well, I think he's saying that right here, where he says, we'd like to suggest that an option would be for the town to rent our facility.
But we don't know if that means for $1 or...
Well,
But
they're
even
not gonna
for-
rent it
Not
for
gonna
$1.
rent it for $1, no.
They
Well-
close it down first.
Well,
Yeah.
right, but if we
They're
were
at the same-
to, if we were to rent it for $1 and then waive taxes on the property because essentially we're using it, that might be what he's looking for. He's maybe just trying to take away that tax burden or something.
Councillor
Just
Edmonds?
invert the buck.
I understand, but I'm just curious what he's looking for from us.
Well, is anybody willing to put a motion forward? That's my question.
With no motion, it is what it is, so he can come to us at any time with further requests.
Sure.
Which is what I would suggest too.
So,
The only thing that I could think of that might maybe alleviate the perception of competing with tax dollars is maybe if our rates were a little higher in our campground so that it gives him
okay.
some advantage or say alleviate that perception of
Okay.
competing with tax dollars.
That is up to the...
Okay, if you just remember what he said in his memo, he said that even by substantially lowering his rate, he could not bring business back. What does that tell you? That tells you that it is not the dollar that makes a difference. What makes a difference is a venue.
Yeah.
Therefore, what is there that we need to pursue? Will we, as a town, have people wanted to go there unless we put tremendous amount of dollars to upgrade that facility, and then who will operate that facility? So are we really adding to the complication that there is none, really? Here, to my point of view, personally, I feel the recommendation should carry on to be exactly what it is to express to Mr. Business at this point. We are not, as a council, interested in renting the place, and that's it. So then, Marian?
I would like that to be a motion for direction to administration to send that letter, so it's clear in the minutes, because there's been a lot of discussion, and it's important that we have a clear direction coming out of this, whichever way you want to go with it.
All right.
Okay, Councillor.
I will make a motion that we send a letter to Mr. Vieser saying that we have considered his letter, and we don't feel there's any direction that the town should take on interfering or changing any thing with regard to our campground or his campground.
Is that clear enough?
And it's up to him
Thank you.
to deal with his campground.
Okay, thank you.
We then would need to vote on that
Any
motion.
questions? No. All in favor? Thank you. Do we want to stop and
Dinners.
we need a motion for manger, exactly. Councillor Barnes, that's the other department. Would you please
I
call your
motion that we will recess for lunch.
Recess, yeah. All in favor? Thank you. Made a motion to reconvene. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you very much to our administration for a very good dinner. We appreciate it.
Yes. Mayor, do we need to extend?
Probably won't finish in 5 minutes.
Okay, you know what? There is quite a bit more to do. So we need to at least put a half an hour.
Yeah. I'll move to extend till 8:30.
Thank you. All right, let's move on and let's try to see how much we can do. 7B, recommendations from CCW.
Do we need to vote on that?
Yes, of course. All in favor? Thank you. A recommendation from CCW. Now, if you remember, we have a committee of the whole in order to put recommendation to council. The idea is for council then to really move forward with motions and to put a decision for the different items that are there. Okay? So the first item we have is Bill 27 and floodway mapping. If you remember, we had said that we would like a letter to be sent to the Minister of Municipalities regarding that very bill, and to have a letter ready. I have already forwarded the letter to administration, but before we can do that, we need to make a decision. There is in your list of suggested motion, a motion regarding this very item. So what we need a motion to be put forward.
I'll make that motion. Whereas Bill 27 deals with land use development in the floodways, and whereas the maps used by the planning authority do not reflect the reality after the 2013 floods, now therefore let it be resolved that council sends a letter to the Minister of Municipalities with a copy to AUMA and worse to request updated floodways maps.
Thank you.
Well said.
Thank you.
Well,
Just for clarification in the motion, it should say Minister of Municipal Affairs
Oh,
instead of
okay.
municipality.
Yes.
Municipal affairs. Yes, I should know. Thank you. Okay, all in favor? Thank you. All right, 7B2, Rosemary Daly. As you could see, there is a letter that was sent in, that was added to your correspondence from Rosemary. And I really feel that, as Councillor Creed pointed out last week, that the town does not bear responsibilities regarding this issue, although we feel as a council much compassion for the the dear lady, we as a town cannot spend taxpayer dollar regarding that. Having said that, I understand that we will send a letter to Rosemary once we have made a decision, and that we need in that letter to explain why the process took so long. We act at times as an appeal board for citizens who are not satisfied with administration way of dealing with an item. It's not that administration did wrong in handling that, but administration felt that we should hear the concern of the citizen. So we were trying to help that citizen follow a proper process.
If I might add, I think one of the reasons, like she asked why, in her letter, why the process was, and I think it would be good for her to know that it's because we wanted to try to find a way to help her.
Yeah, and this would be the recommendation to administration, that to really craft a letter that would explain why council was willing to hear it once and why council chose to table it until they had further information from the electrician. And we've done due diligence. It's unfortunate that for this dear lady, it caused angst. And maybe there are something that we could also ask administration as to how do we deal with the customer at the source when I come with a complaint of that source, and that we see that when they deal with that customer, to make sure that the customer really understands what they're requesting. Maybe in that case she did not understand. I'm not sure. Councillor Bell.
You know, I still remember the situation up on the East Hill when we had, what, 17 or 18 people, that there was a genuine power surge because of a situation that was caused with a the wrong transformer. And we took responsibility for that, and because that was our fault. But in this situation, there has never been any evidence that the town had a problem, and she hasn't had any evidence in her house where the problem originated within her house. But it's only logic that it had to come from within her house.
Yeah, but you know, at this point, we cannot go through all the arguments that we hashed out. And I think I appreciate what you're trying to point out, that the town does take responsibility when the town has done something wrong.
Right.
And that is right, and this council is very fair, I believe, in treating customers and taxpayers. I really believe we are.
I think this is indicative of a council doing all of their due diligence.
Yes.
And it's very reflective in what we did. And we're gonna have, this isn't gonna be the first one, you know, we're gonna have others, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Not in the electrical department, but there'll be other grievances that we're gonna have to work on and disappointments. But we showed that we did due diligence, and that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's what we're here for.
Councillor Green.
I just wanted to mention that I did visit with Mrs. Davies several times. Actually, I visited with her at the time that she submitted that last letter that we have in our package today. And I just wanted to say that she's just looking for closure now. She realizes that she had an insurance adjuster visit her. She realizes that where it was at, and so she just said, you know, well, why didn't they just tell me to start with? They probably did, but she was insistent, you know, on coming to council, and her memory has, you know, she's had some health issues as well, and she can't remember everything that she said and things like that. But she was basically, at the time she submitted that letter, just saying, okay, I just, you know, need some closure on this now. And so I think she's satisfied, basically, that we did
Thank
what we
you.
could.
Didn't she indicate that it was gonna cost her $1,000 deductible to spend $500? Because it was gonna be about $1,500?
With the insurance, and that's her choice.
Oh, I see.
That's an insurance issue that we
Yeah.
cannot solve either. But what we can do is instruct administration to write a letter to Mrs. Daly and to make sure that we help her understand why the issue came to council once, why it came twice. It's because of our concern to make sure that if we were at fault, we would have compensated. If we were not at fault, we cannot spend taxpayer dollar in trying to compensate. So is that sufficient at this point for administration? Do we want a motion to have this letter sent? So who would like to put a motion forward?
I'll move that we send a letter to Miss Daly, give me the details of why the process took as long as it did, and that we're sorry that it couldn't turn out better, but that's the way it has to be.
Okay. Marian?
If I might, there was a recommendation in your CCW that I think part of that should be included in your motion.
I did not take this.
responsibility.
At the time.
Right. Yeah, that there was no responsibility the town can take for that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll amend my motion to include that.
Okay. All in favor? Thank you.
Also, if I may, just on that note, maybe directing to administration the reminder to people that are looking to come and talk to us that the process, and maybe this was said to Rosemary or to Miss Daly, but the process coming to council takes time. Usually we have to hear an issue and then we have to mull it over, and then, sometimes takes 2, maybe 3 council sessions. And because I know in the case of Miss Daly, she kind of that first day, she was thinking she'd walk out of here with a check that she could cash the next morning. And, even before we even discussed it, I pulled her aside and said, just so you're aware, process with council is, as fast as we go, but we follow certain guidelines, certain rules, and things like that are not fast, quick fixes when they get up to this level.
Okay. Marian?
Just in response to that, I visited with Councillor Creed about this after he'd met with Ms. Daly, and I did say to him, we had a form letter in the past, and potentially we could revitalize that, where when we have these claims, we give the citizen an actual formal written denial of claim. And in there, we would stipulate that they do have the right to appeal to council. The only concern I have using that is I don't want the citizens to feel that we're being a bit heavy-handed from administration. Because right now, our process is we get the call, we send staff, they investigate. If it's deemed to be not a situation in our system, then we advise them to contact their insurance company. So we try and help them best we can. At that point, though, if we issue a letter, it may appear to some that we're being a little bit heavy-handed. So that's just a bit of a concern that I have.
Personally, I think because the system for the past 3 years has worked very well, the way it is set up, I wouldn't think that we need anything more formal. Councillor Bengry?
We've had a motion put forward to put this into rest.
Yeah.
And in the essence of time, let's move forward.
Thank you. So that has been settled. Okay.
So let it be.
Yeah. So all in
No,
favor?
we did.
We've already
No, we
voted.
already voted.
Yeah, we've already
That
voted.
was an addendum to the.
Okay,
Yeah.
Question.
That was okay, we didn't need to vote on that.
Okay.
Amendment.
All right.
No.
We'll just move right along here.
7B3, as you noted, you could see in your packet, we have not received the lifetime membership documentation of Mr. Alan Cahoon, nor of all the golfers with lifetime membership. Therefore, we need a motion to table this one. Councillor Bengry, would you want to?
Whereas administration has not yet received the requested lifetime membership documentation of Mr. Hardin Kuhn and of other golfers with lifetime memberships, now therefore let it be resolved that council tables this item until complete and proper documentation is provided to administration.
Thank you. Any questions? All in favor? You have a problem, one vote against? Okay, it's fine. No problem. Democracy in action is wonderful. Okay, 7B 4 is regarding the plebiscite. We had a motion, put a recommendation to council to have a plebiscite as for the end of September. We had not given a time, but that, in talking with administration, is the time frame that would be appropriate if we were to move forward with this. So, question, go ahead.
I'm just wondering how we're going to handle Mrs. Creed's situation. Are we still going to move forward with the plebiscite regardless, or?
Well, all this
or do
is
we want
part
to
of
consider what she
the
has to say?
question. All this is all part of this discussion at this point. So, number one, what we need to look at is what council wants to do regarding the presentation. Right now, the recommendation is to have a plebiscite far enough in time that if we chose to stay with this option, there is a fair amount of time where education of the public can happen, but not on the formula or the model that Wendy presented at council. So this is number one, what needs to be decided. We spoke quite a bit about the issue at last council. This is a new additional information that you tried to present last time, kind of. This was an elaboration on the same concept. We, last time, still decided to have a plebiscite. So, up to you.
Just the comment, when we discussed that plebiscite situation, we were also, I thought, going to do it still on a trial basis as a pilot project. I didn't think we were going to just kind of open it up. That was my understanding, that if we did vote to have a plebiscite, that the people would have to be educated enough to understand that it would be as a pilot project, much like what Wendy is suggesting.
Okay,
Is
okay,
accomplished by a plebiscite?
all right. Councillor Creed, you want to talk to that?
I mean, sometimes it's nice to discuss these at the committee of the whole. It gives us a chance to think about things too as well. That's why we do the 3 readings on bylaws as well, so that we can kind of spread things over and give things a little sober second thought. But as I did think about it, and my wife pointed out to me, she says, if you get half and half, and it's a non-binding plebiscite, all you've done is harden people's and I think our council has tried to, in as many cases we can, find win-win solutions to problems rather than win-lose areas. And I think we could, if we look at this with some understanding, and I think we could find a win-win situation. I felt like my wife's presentation was very good. That that we could do a.
You better.
Yeah. I don't know if she watches this or not. But, no.
Okay, well, let's.
And I'll just say, like from a personal standpoint, like several people indicated, where I live, it wouldn't be a problem. And I know, like, if I was just to come to council and say, could I be rezoned as agriculture, I'm confident you'd say, yeah, go ahead. But, I don't want to I just want to say, this isn't me. There have been many people in the community that have made this request, so it's not like saying And I'd feel selfish if I was to say, you know, I can get it for myself, but, you know, but I'm not interested in helping anybody else in the community. So, like I say, I think in fairness to everyone, you know, I think if we could do a pilot program, and like she said, so that we know both, you know, both sides know if this is something viable.
Councillor Bengry, everybody should have a chance to talk on this.
I think we got to remember that in CCW meeting, I made a motion to include in the 2014 budget an additional $13,000, $10,000 for security and issues, and $3,000 for a plebiscite, and to recommend to accept the rate structure proposed under option 2. Now, if this is the situation, if we don't have that $3,000 put aside for a plebiscite, are we going to have to go back and redo our budget?
No, I don't believe so. I don't believe so. It's just money that can
Are
be...
we sure?
Well...
Because there's a motion right there
yeah.
that was made in CCW.
Yeah.
You don't have to spend money.
No.
You know, we haven't in the past.
Well, Marian can speak to that, but I believe that that is money that is reverted back to general revenue, or that is earmarked for further years.
It was earmarked for a plebiscite, Mayor.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree with you. Okay, I don't say that is wrong. Essentially, what we need to decide is how we approach this situation. The situation was approached from the point of view that we would have a plebiscite. I ran a campaign with the fact that we would have a plebiscite, and that was public. So, one way or the other, I think that even if there is a pilot program, no matter what, sooner or later you still need a plebiscite to be able to get people's opinion. Personally, I think if we push, if the intent is to have people educated, there is also a possibility to have something similar to what we're doing with government education. There is also, if we push it far away in time, to have a survey done by Wendy or people that work with her regarding education on keeping chicken in town, and allow it to be a public, not only maybe restricted to 10 or 20 or 30 families, but to open it to all to get informed, and in order then to have sufficient knowledge to be able to say, well, I might not like chicken, but I can see how it could work, and that might change people's way of voting, right? Because now they're educated. So essentially, education, as we always say, it empowers you to make better decisions. So I think in that sense, rather than to be 10 or 20 family, the whole town will have a chance. And if you want to get Corey to put it on video or whatever, that might be another thing that could happen. So personally, I would favor the recommendation that was done at CCW and carry on with that, but it doesn't withstand the education component, but it won't be the same kind of model.
I'm just curious what you are referring to as an education model.
Well, the education would be to simply be able to help people understand that keeping chickens in town does not mean that you have a pest in town, that it is doable under those kind of conditions, etc., and be able to present that as part of urban agriculture.
Well, I'm wondering, because, you know, of the comments, you know, that have been made even at this table, which, you know, mostly are speculation. If the education wouldn't be, we have a site somewhere in town where people can visit, somebody that, you know, that's actually keeping some hens and say, I don't smell anything, or I don't hear anything, or I mean, just that was I think the concern that was raised is that you know, you can read many pros and cons, you can hear many pros and cons, but unless you experience something firsthand, how do you know? Is it just continual speculation, I guess? So that's...
I guess a fluoride is the same thing,
Well,
see?
it is, but we
It's
have...
a little bit in the same kind of,
It is, yeah. So
it's the same kind of story, really.
I'm just thinking, how do we properly educate people? I agree with you.
And I think that's a difficult question.
Mhm.
I'm not convinced that doing a pilot project does anything as far as the education component of it goes. At the end of the day, we still have the same problem. If you're running chickens at your house, and that doesn't mean that I have any education about you having done chickens for 3 years at your place.
No, maybe not unless you live next door.
Yeah, unless you live right next door to it. I just, personally, for me, from what I saw in the campaign, I think a plebiscite is the only answer that works. It was the bottom line that I gave at the door when this issue came up, that I felt that at the end of the day, it needed to go to a plebiscite, and people needed to have that direct vote on it.
Councillor Barfuss?
I still feel the plebiscite's the way to go. I've had many people talk about it, and I've heard just as many people for as I have against. And I think that the defining moment will be the plebiscite, and I think we need to make sure the question is presented really properly, you know,
Yeah,
and there has to be some education up front too before the plebiscite.
Yes.
You know, but I really think that in the plebiscite, I think the form of the licensing has to come in the form that Wendy is suggesting, that there has to be some restrictions, and maybe it's just going to be a pilot project for the first, it's not going to be an open wholesale, you know, that everybody in town is going to be able to have chickens. It's got, there has to be certain parameters so that we're not having, you know, problems with smaller lots. Like Councillor Bengry's got a small lot, and the lots all around him are small, and it's going to be difficult to have chickens in his neighborhood.
Okay.
But in areas like I've got big lots, and everybody's got a big lot. And there used to be chickens, there used to be cows, for goodness sakes, in my backyard. You know, so I don't have a problem with the plebiscite.
Councillor Peavoy?
Yeah, I also don't have a problem with the plebiscite. I do agree with the recommendation that I think education before the plebiscite might be very worthwhile.
Yeah.
And I think having some information relevant to the area for that education would be worthwhile. I think that if one of the components of a pilot program were, for instance, a running blog, saying, hey, here's the 10 families, here's comments from their neighbors at 3 months, at 6 months, at 9 months, and if we were to postpone the chicken, you know, plebiscite for, say, 12 months, offer, you know, permission for Wendy to run her pilot program, get that documentation, run an education series, answer questions, and say, you know what, actually we've had chickens in town for 9 months, and so far we've only had one complaint, and that guy complains about everything, or whatever, you know.
Would we be willing to, at that then, put off the decision on fluoride for that same time period? Because I think it's crazy for us to run 2 plebiscites in a year.
Oh, for sure, and I don't think that we as a council should feel pressured to continually link these 2 items. I mean, it makes sense to save money and do a plebiscite once rather than 2 plebiscites. I agree a plebiscite would be a good, you know, valuable thing for chickens. I also maybe think we're not there yet with the information. Personally, I'm in favor of a pilot program, and I'd be happy to volunteer to help oversee the pilot program.
I'll just say this, these 2 issues are the only 2 issues all year long so far that I've had people coming and knocking on my door and calling me about. And it's been pretty consistent, and it's been pretty widespread views on both sides. That the topic is out there. It is, I won't call it heated, but I think it's pretty hot conversation, warm conversation. And I see the only way of resolving that long run is for them both to be on a plebiscite.
Okay. Councillor Edmonds, we haven't heard from you.
Well, I think if you're going to do an education program, one thing we would have to do is show which lots would qualify for this, because a lot won't. We have a lot of properties that have been split and divided up. And probably most of those won't qualify, so we'd have to have some kind of a map saying, these are the areas proposed for the backyard chickens.
Yeah, would have to be done, like she's put on here.
Okay.
Zone single
Now,
family.
here, we need to make a decision here. We have a recommendation for council, so is somebody willing to bring a motion forward?
I am. I move that we, whereas the need arises for further information for the public, I let it be resolved that we allow certain license to participants of a pilot program headed up by, Wendy Creed, in which time she will be reporting back the progress of that pilot program in anticipation of a plebiscite in the future.
So are you separating the two plebiscite questions?
I'm not talking about fluoride at all, so if you want to link them together and postpone the fluoride, that would be fine with me. If you wanted to link them together again, I mean, if you really wanted to link them, it would take us about 5 minutes and $0 to turn off fluoride for those months that we're doing the chicken pilot program. And we could see if substantial dental problems creep in during that trial. So we
you're
have
suggesting
two pilots.
that we
I'm not
have-
suggesting we do that, but I'm saying it's an option if you want to link these two items together
Okay.
until such a time as a
Questions? There is a motion on the table.
Can we repeat the motion, because there was a lot of conversation, and
Right.
we need to make sure
Yes.
that we've got the accurate.
Absolutely. So whereas did you get the whereas? Okay, so therefore, be it resolved that we allow, as council, we allow, or we, I guess, direct administration to allow certain licenses. Sorry, direct administration to allow certain licenses for participants in a pilot program overseen by Wendy Creed. Sorry, I should probably type it up.
Pilot program. Okay. By Wendy Creed.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And so that they can report back what the progress of the pilot program. Specifically, I'll tell you, I mean, and this isn't part of the thing, but just in discussion, specifically what the neighbors say. I mean, obviously the people that have the chickens will all rave and, we pretty much don't care what they say. We want to hear what the neighbors say. Has this been a disruption? Has this been a problem? And if it comes back favorable, then we report that back in preparation for the plebiscite, which is, by the way, the end of that. In preparation for a plebiscite.
Okay, Councillor Bengry and then Councillor Creed.
Parentheses in the middle, you can delete it.
Mayor,
That's a
before
long motion.
Get the whereas and the last part.
Got it.
Mayor, before the question is called, I ask for a recorded vote, please.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Creed?
Councillor Peavoy, just question on, did you have any timeline that you would?
That's a great question.
Prefer on that?
Honestly,
I mean, it could be shortened if the rest of the council feel like, but maybe that might hinge on that motion. Especially if they want to get this going sooner, the plebiscite or something.
Right, yeah. Honestly, I think, and this is based on a conversation I had with Wendy privately, but I think that her pilot program could be up, running, and have sufficient information as to, smell and disruption within, 6 months. So from today, that would be what, an October plebiscite, if we wanted to have it this year. It sounds like we weren't planning to do our plebiscite anytime before August anyway. So we'd be September, so we'd be adding maybe a month to that. During that time, the whole idea of the motion here is to get information to the public, education. So there would be an education component. As you suggested, perhaps a class that would be offered to the public, open to all who could come, learn, have their questions answered, and see pictures of the pilot program residences, letters from the neighbors all stating pros and cons, and then have the education needed to make that decision, not on emotion, but on fact, on how successful or unsuccessful it's been. So.
Marian.
Madam Mayor, I just have one question. Did you want specific in the motion the number of allowable pilot projects? Are you going to allow 10, 40, 100?
Yeah, I think, honestly, I don't think we need any more than 20, but maybe if I could direct a question to administration, how many families have come asking about chickens to the office? Like, is it 5, is it 50?
There's been some discussion on Facebook, probably I would say 5-ish would be in the conversation on that. We've actually had, I can think off the top of my head, 3 separate individuals who have inquired in the past.
Jeff?
I think maybe a bit of an accurate representation, and I don't remember which councillors were here. We had a delegation on this topic,
Yes.
I want to say about 3 years ago.
Yes, we did.
And we had quite a number of delegates that came and spoke in favor of it at the time. I don't have a number, that can be found through the minutes. But there was-
Yeah, we were given those minutes in our last meeting.
Yeah, there was quite a few people.
I found it fascinating that of all of the delegations, all were in favor of chickens, and then in the next council, they voted against it. So it was just shocking that they didn't get not one person saying anything negative about chickens.
That's not shocking at all.
So,
Actually,
yeah.
All right.
that's typical.
Marian would like to
So-
offer some information.
Well, yeah, right now, it's hard to say how many people would be interested, but I think it's important to have in the motion the number of pilot projects you.
Sure, and the reason for my question is, if we capped it at 20, I didn't want, 40 people to say, wow, you excluded us. But I think 20 was more than sufficient for this pilot program. And it might be less, but definitely a cap at 20, I think, is fair for this group.
All right, so if I understand, go ahead, Councillor.
So there's 2 things that I am concerned about here. One is the definition of the pilot project, in that, you're referencing the material that Wendy gave us tonight. There's a number of things in there that I don't know would be appropriate to have as the rules for a pilot project. I'm reluctant to vote in favor of a motion that doesn't give some more concrete of what we're talking about as far as a pilot project goes. And I can't remember what the other thing I was going to say. Oh.
Okay, so are you trying to, I'm trying to understand what you're trying to tell us here. You are telling us really that before we vote on this issue and resolve this issue, you would like to see the definition and the framework of that pilot project
Before we say we're going to vote for a pilot project, I would like to see a pilot
presented
project.
to council as to the parameter and everything defined in it before we go, which would be fair,
I agree.
which would be totally fair.
So, given that statement, I'll move that we table this until we come up with parameters. And how would you, and just ask.
We already have a motion.
Can we have a motion? So
okay.
in order
Unless
for that
Bill withdraws.
motion, we need to
I thought we could
decide
table it.
if Councillor Bengry wants to remove, who made the motion anyway? Councillor Peavoy, if you want to change your motion to table it until further information is given regarding the pilot project provided to council in order to make a proper decision.
Sure, absolutely. I would further recommend that, I don't know who would put together a sufficient pilot program, document to meet your specifications, but I would maybe recommend that a couple of people from this council sit on a committee, perhaps with administration, and work something out.
Okay.
I would recommend that you allow administration to work with the person, Mrs. Creed,
That's what I was gonna
and come
suggest.
back with a recommended
Okay.
pilot project.
Okay.
I don't think we need to form a committee to do that.
Can I also suggest something? In the notes that I had provided last week on CCW, you could see that Dr. Merkley in town was also recommended that if we were doing anything, would be a pilot project. That was his idea. I'm wondering if we should not include him in that subcommittee since he's Merkley is a vet in town. So since it was one of his recommendations, why not approach him and get his expertise before we go any further?
You bet.
Will we have to amend the present bylaw in order to allow this to happen?
Well, that is an interesting question for administration because the land use bylaw does not allow for a pilot project. Therefore, that is another consideration. There is another consideration that we need to really look at. I mean, I understand windy presentation from egg to meat in a freezer, but if you classify the backyard hen as a pet, you really can't kill your pet.
It's not a pet.
So I don't recommend
That
it.
is a problem.
Not a pet.
Well, that's one of the arguments that's made in some of the material.
Yeah, I don't know, that's,
I agree with you.
Well,
that's never
it's-
sat with me.
Indicated
It-
is the
it
problem
is-
in Vancouver.
It is a way that you define your backyard hen, under which law is it going to fit? Is it under human society or is it under the agricultural? And if you go with one, this one thing, if you go under the other, the restrictions and you're talking about 150 feet, well, that will apply. So,
So, Mayor, can we maybe ask administration then, would that require a change in our bylaw?
Yes, it
then?
will.
Potentially, I'll have to review that, yeah.
so
Councillor
there is
Edmonds had a
a,
comment.
Councillor Edmonds?
If they have children in the family, they will be pets. They will all have names. And they will be buried in the backyard with full honors, the whole thing. As soon as you get children involved, it's a completely different thing.
Okay, well, therefore we need the education, okay? So we have a motion on the table, I think we need to make a decision.
Now, how did that go? I just.
But you need to reword your motion because,
Might I suggest that the right action might be to withdraw that motion?
Just withdraw.
yes, that's what needs to be done and it needs to table this item. So would you do that?
Yes, absolutely.
And then we'd
Would
recommend
you-
registration.
Might I make a motion to extend then, because we're at 8:30?
Okay. I thought we
Okay.
should
So
put it on
I'll move that we'll extend till 9.
All right, thank you. All in favor?
So the
We need to
motion's
get
been
moving
withdrawn, right?
because, you see, that is a problem when we make a decision as CCW, if it comes back for further discussion, we can spend a lot of time on the item, which is not the idea of CCW, but we need to have proper information.
Madam Mayor, before you move on from this item, I would request that there be a motion to give administration some direction, and I'm sorry it's late again.
Yeah,
No, yeah,
I thought that's what Councillor
So I
Peavoy was doing.
move to recommend to administration that they meet with Ms. Creed, Mrs.
Direct
Creed.
administration?
Direct,
Not recommend.
thank you, direct administration to meet with Mrs. Creed and come up with a sufficient pilot program that, to be reviewed here, that, and any other amendments or proposals to other bylaws that would be necessary to enact said pilot program.
And
So can I,
And consult Dr. Merkley if you see fit, at your own discretion.
Madam Mayor, it appears Graham just needs some clarification.
What have you got so far?
okay, can I just simplify that? And tell me if I'm
Yeah,
oversimplifying.
no, go ahead.
Because it's just a lot to write. Moved by Councillor Peavoy to direct administration to meet with Wendy Creed
Yes.
and Dr. Ryan Merkley to craft a proposed pilot project for raising chickens in backyards and residential properties.
Perfect.
For council's further review.
Exactly.
Yeah, for council further review. Yeah.
Yes.
Now you realize that this could bring still a vote that could be positive or negative,
Well, we're
right?
voting right now, that's why,
So-
there it is.
Okay. So, any more questions?
So we're not tabling this?
We've got a motion basically to direct administration to come up with some ideas.
So 5 years from now, we'll make a decision?
Maybe.
If we need a time restraint, I would say by next council. I'd
We
like to see
can't
that.
have something put together by next council that would be sufficient to give you all the information you need.
I don't
We're
believe
a
that
week and a half,
people-
we're a week from putting the agenda together. That's not, in my opinion, sufficient time for us.
How much time do you need?
I would say by the,
CCW.
I think the June CCW meeting, we could have something.
Great.
Okay, Councillor Bengry, do you still want this vote recorded?
Yes.
Okay, so let's vote. I did not give my opinion on this whole thing. Maybe I will give my opinion. My opinion was that I understand the need for, from any point of view, for a pilot. Mine was really to think that we could have had a pilot after the plebiscite with an education component prior to the plebiscite. Mine was to have a pilot after the plebiscite. That is the way I would vote, is to have that potential privilege given to people after the plebiscite.
That's exactly where I was coming from in the beginning. I still feel that.
Okay.
That's the way to go. That's my opinion.
All right, so we need to vote. Honestly, we do. So.
Well, I think he was just going to comment on this new motion.
Well, what I was going to say is that if they put together, if we're going to do it, whether we do the, pilot project before or after,
it will be
still
the same way.
It still wouldn't hurt to,
Yeah.
to start putting together
Yeah,
what parameters would.
Yeah, but
be
it
in place.
changes the way you vote, right?
yeah.
So can you read that motion again, just to make sure we know what we're voting on?
Moved by, oh, sorry, I spelled it wrong. Moved by Councillor Peavoy to direct administration to meet with Wendy Creed and Dr. Ryan Merkley to draft a pilot program for the raising of chickens on residential lots and to bring that draft program to a subsequent council meeting for council's consideration.
Okay. The thing is, the pilot program, then depending on how we vote, can disappear if we don't amend that motion to say to be in effect before or after the plebiscite. I don't know.
Right, are you recommending we attach plebiscite verbiage to this motion?
Well, it's up to you.
Because, like I say, I think that as a council, we probably should have an opportunity to get people the information they need to participate in the plebiscite.
Because if you do it to be effective prior or after, then you open a chance to have that package done. I wouldn't want people to start to go through all that effort for no reason at all.
Well, like I say, I don't think that
Well, it's up to you.
I don't think we're launching a pilot program right now. We're just asking administration to come back to us with what a pilot program would look like. We're not approving the pilot program at this point.
Okay, so we're not approving it. We're putting
Did I lead
documentation
anyone to believe that
together.
we were going to approve it at this vote? I mean, I don't think that's the intention of the motion, to approve the pilot program.
So the intention, let's be clear on the intention. Your intention for this motion is to get administration to put information together.
Correct.
And for the information then to be presented at council
For a vote.
for a vote. Fair enough. All in favor? Okay. Against? Against?
Keep your hands.
Oh, no, no.
Keep your hands
Take
up.
my hand down.
Brian, can you record that, please?
All right, thank you. Okay.
Now I have a question.
So a bit
And
late.
once we have this recommendation for this pilot project, then we will refer back to a plebiscite, right?
Yeah.
Well,
That's
right?
our choice.
And then we
That's
can
our
choose.
choice, okay. I still feel
Yeah, I didn't put a hold on any plebiscite.
Yeah, and, okay, so let's go through that plebiscite, because that is an important point we have. We have the free right, the back out, yeah, hands. And we were thinking of a September 2014 plebiscite. But are you talking now postponing that to October?
Maybe a month back. I don't think we have to specify a date. We could just say.
Well, we need to
Was
specify
there a
because
specific reason why we were looking at September?
administration.
Our recommendation was that, first of all, there needs to be some education around the fluoride.
Yeah.
And the months of July and August are not good times to try to do education. And towards the end of June, by the time we would have everything in place, and we would maybe be able to hold some education sessions, it would be later June. And then we thought in early September, you could do some additional education. And then late September, hold the plebiscite. That was our rationale. It also gives you enough time to make sure proper advertising and the community has an opportunity to engage in the conversation.
All right, so,
Question.
Councillor Barfuss?
How is that September date going to affect our attendance at the AUMA and preparing for that too and coming back?
Well, we would have to work around schedules.
Yeah.
Because the AUMA is, I believe, the last week of September. So
Okay. Do you
it
want
might be
to,
early October before we get
would you prefer to put it October 2014 and so that solves those issues? And
Madam Mayor, if the intent of this pilot project really is to get a sense of what
the earlier the better.
the results would be of having backyard hens, I don't believe that the months of June, July, August are going to give you sufficient data to be able to have the citizens educated on that
Right.
pilot project. One of the concerns that's been raised in some of the literature that we've read is the winterizing and the protection of those animals, or those, I shouldn't call them animals, I'm sorry.
No, they are.
Food sources. Through the winter months. And so if you're tying the two together, that is a concern that we would have to address. And if the plebiscite is held too soon, I don't think you will have reliable data to further educate the public if that's the intent of the pilot project.
Okay.
So it could become a more of an emotional issue as opposed to an educated issue.
But plebiscites always are,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
When would you recommend that we hold this then, for the date, so we have the data?
Right now we have.
I'm not recommending we do a pilot project. I'm saying if you're going to, I'm not making any recommendations either way. Sorry,
That is not a decision to be done by.
But if the decision is to do a pilot project, which you've just given administration direction to work towards putting the parameters of that together, I would assume that there's some will of council to maybe move forward with the pilot project. You need to have that data if you're going to use it as educational. So, I don't know, Mrs. Creed said 6 months would give some data. I'm not an expert in that, I can't.
All right, so here is another problem. The problem is the linkage between the fluoride plebiscite and the hand. Then, would it be wise then to postpone the two plebiscites in 2015? That's what I'm wondering. The money is in a budget right now for the plebiscite this year.
I'll give you a recommendation, maybe to help move this discussion along. Perhaps we've been given direction to work on the pilot project. If it's council's wish to proceed with the plebiscite, could you simply make the motion to proceed with the fluoride and backyard hens plebiscite? When we come back to you in June with the parameters of the pilot project, a time could be determined at that.
Okay, all right. So we need a motion.
All right. Go ahead.
Councillor
All right. Okay, so all right, now I will use this one here. Whereas fluoride and backyard hens respectively are polarizing health and land use issues in town, and whereas council has heard strong arguments for or against these issues in 2013 campaign trails, and whereas council needs significant input from the population regarding these divisive issues to make an appropriate decision. Now let's be resolved that to direct administration to prepare 2 plebiscite questions for a non-binding plebiscite to take place at a yet to be determined date.
Yeah. Okay, any questions? On,
Just maybe a question for administration. When website questions are formed, who determines the wording of the question?
Council will determine that. We will come to you with some recommendations. We're actually working on those right now, so you'll have a number of options, and then it'll be up to council to formulate that question. Because obviously the question can direct the answer, right? So you want to make sure that whatever, and you want to ask the right question, so that you get the proper answer.
all right, so all in favor? Thank you. Let's move on. We now are at 7B5, food staffing. Recommendation was made to approve all the list of the 8 candidates. So somebody needs to make a motion. Councillor,
If I could, the recommendation was to approve the 3 siblings.
Not
It wasn't all the
yeah, no,
candidates.
to approve the 8 siblings, that's the way it's going to read.
3 siblings.
8 applicants.
Where are we? We're not asking for council approval of our 8 applicants.
No, I understand that, I'm just giving the background, the motion is written the right way. Councillor Barfuss, do you want to
Sure.
go ahead?
Whereas the town policy requires a vote of council to approve the hiring of family members of town employees, and whereas the number of lifeguard positions, 8, was exactly matched by the same number of applications, and whereas all applicants have the appropriate qualifications to be lifeguards, now therefore let it be resolved that council approves Cassidy, Madison, and Sadie as lifeguards for the 2014 pool season.
Thank you. Any questions? All in favor? Thank you. Okay, we need a motion for 7B7, no, 6, medicinal marijuana. There was a recommendation. Councillor Edmonds, go ahead.
Whereas medical marijuana production has now been endorsed by the province and Alberta, and whereas the town council needs to take a proactive approach regarding this issue, now therefore let it be resolved that administration draft an amendment to the land use bylaw to define medical marijuana, but not to include the use as permitted or discretionary in any zoning, and to send the draft bylaw to legal for advice.
Any questions?
In our recent committee, and I forget the name of the committee, what's the name of our committee? Municipal something?
Municipal planning.
Planning, Municipal Planning Committee. We had the recommendation from municipal planning on this issue. And I just think the way this proposal is coming out kind of contradicts the advice from that committee. In the sense that it says not include the use as permitted or discretionary in any zoning. I believe it was the advice, and that'll be in our committee report as well, the advice of that committee to zone it heavy industrial. So.
Which is what Calgary does.
Right. So we may just want to, if we strike that last, from the but, and we kind of leave it to the recommendation of the committee, we delegate it, I think, for now, until we get that back, that would be sufficient.
Although doesn't discretionary in any zoning cover that? Like, we're going to decide which zone it can be, if it was.
Well, another way to read this would be that you can't do it in any zone. And that wouldn't be the intention of, because we are going to have a zone 4.
But then you're going to say it's okay.
Right now, the way this bylaw is written, is to try to avoid the possibility of having it anywhere.
Right.
Just
So-
by the sheer fact that we're defining what it is. And that was a legal recommendation. So I understand what he's saying. What he's saying is the approach that Calgary took in that very large city.
Right.
They really threw it as far away from the center as they could.
Right.
In our small city, nothing is far away.
Right,
So
I
this
just
is
want to be
why,
careful that wording of this particular bylaw doesn't exclude.
Remember,
Well,
this is
we're
going
gonna
to
take it to
legal
legal
first. This is
for
going to
advice.
legal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so
as
would
long
you
as-
be okay with the motion with Sam and change it once we have the legal advice. Would that be all right? Okay, so all in favor? Thank you. All right, 7B7, it has to do with the Black Sands Management Agreement. And as you know, the town now Black Sands Management really adhere to the letter of the 2010 list. So it had to be reopened and reworked and redrafted, which is what was done. So I need a motion to approve. Councillor Barnes?
Whereas the town and Black Sands Management did not adhere to the letter of the 2010 lease of the golf course, and whereas a revision and addition of some operative clauses needed to be redrafted to satisfy the interests of the town as a lessor and the Black Sands Management as lessee. Now therefore let it be resolved that council approve the agreement between the town of Cardston and Black Sands Management Group as presented, with the possibility of an amended Schedule C listing of assets.
Marian, I think the word operative needs to be operational. Is that right?
It's
Operative is fine. Thank you. Okay, any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. Man, we're trucking along. All right, so, and Noel is so patient. All right, Noel, maybe that's your time to shine. 7B8, Marian and Noel. There are a few new developments regarding the budget, and Marian will speak to those. And we will need 2 motions.
Okay. At the last meeting, the motion was put forward at the CCW meeting, to look at option 2. There was a couple of other amendments that were recommended. First was the $3,000 for the plebiscite and an additional $10,000 for safety initiatives. So those items were input into the budget. In further review, we did discover, and apologize to council for this, but the approximately $40,000 of municipal tax that we have agreed to waive for the golf course property was not included in the adjustments. So what that does is changes the mill rate a little bit. The budget that I put in front of you in your packages, just going to go back. You have, if you look at the first item, the taxes real property is 2.560820. The option 2 that you approved in principle at the last meeting had 2.5607. What's that? 72
from the actual budget.
72. So what that essentially does when we looked at that was, under that option, we would propose that we still collect the 7.560, that $88,664 remain in the land reserve, so we would not use those to offset capital projects, which would leave that $88,000 in our land reserves. What we would do though is we would have to adjust the mill rate slightly from what was proposed to you the other day. So when Noel and I looked at that, what we did is we tried to even out the total percentage change in mill rate between residential and non-residential properties. In the proposal that I'm presenting to you tonight, we would reduce the residential municipal mill rate from 2013 was 7.4912 down to 7.4105, which is a 1.1% decrease, as opposed to 3.2% decrease that we had talked about last week. And that is specific to that $40-some thousand that we need to cover, that we actually waive that municipal portion. We're proposing to reduce the non-residential rate from 13.1322 to 12.7107, which would remain at the 3.2% decrease. What that does was overall, if you remember, the the education tax on the residential, there was this proposed reduction, and I believe it was 8.2%. And on the non-residential, there was proposed, or there is a, I shouldn't say proposed, these are is, on the education property, an increase. By reducing the non-residential by the 3.2% on the municipal side and 1.1% on the residential side, the overall percentage in change for residential would be a reduction of 2.89% and a reduction in the non-residential of 2.02%. So it would still leave approximately a 3% reduction, 2.89% reduction on the residential mill rate, overall mill rate, and 2%. With that being said, the impact and obviously the non-residential would be the same as we presented at the last meeting because we have not proposed to change that mill rate. There would be a percentage decrease on residential of an average of 1.66% in their tax implication. And that is on to, I think there's 16 properties here, if I counted them correctly. So we took 16 properties with a good cross-section of the community and did the average. That ranged from, we had one home that sold for, or actually that had some improvements we talked about last time, and one that sold for more than what the assessed value was. Those show a slight increase, but the majority of that was because of the improvements to the home or the sale price. The rest of the properties range from, let me see here, a 0.88%, so 0.88% reduction, up to a 5.46% reduction. The reason we're making that recommendation is we do have a second and a third option here for you to consider, but our recommendation is based on the fact that we know that the MSI funding is not going to be with us more than into 2015. We had the $67,000 increase this year. If we use that $67,000 to offset the $40,000 that we're waiving on the taxes, next year we may see that it has a negative impact and we'll have to increase taxes to cover that up. So our recommendation is leave the money in the land reserves, reduce the mill rate still, just not as high a percentage of a reduction, but we're still reducing the mill rate. And you'll see an overall impact on the properties of approximately 1.5% to 2%, depending on the assessment reduction on your tax bill.
Okay, thank you, Marian, for this.
Do you want me to give you the other options, or
Yeah, I
do you
think
want questions?
I honestly believe that because we understand the importance of having some money put in land reserve, I think what we need to do as council is look at it as a wise move to retain some money in the land reserve, considering that we're still dropping the mill rate on the residential and substantially in the commercial. I think we're doing good. The other solution, Marian can go ahead with them if you want to hear them all. but definitely this is, in my point of view, the wisest move.
I just have one question. The other options basically are effectively the same kind of principles as what we talked about
Yes.
for the other options before.
But we
Right.
don't have as much
Right.
money.
But it just wouldn't, we would be using additional land reserves to cover off.
Right, the numbers are slightly
Yeah,
different.
this is still maintaining option.
Yeah, if we use the same mill rate
Yes.
that we proposed last week, it would reduce our tax by $43,000, the amount we collect in taxes, which in essence then would mean we would use an additional $40-some thousand of land reserve, which.
Yep.
I think the only option that is wise, considering the uncertainty of the MSI, is to put some of that money that was given to us this year and reserve it. And be wise. This way, next year we don't have to increase taxes unnecessarily because we have not thought of this problem. Okay, Councillor Edmonds?
I make a motion to extend the meeting another 20 minutes.
I know you would be my extender. Okay, all in favor? Thank you. Councillor Bengry?
I'll make a motion that as we've reviewed the budget for 2014, therefore it be resolved that council adopts the 2014 budget as presented on May 13th, 2014 by administration.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? All in favor? Thank you. Now,
I just need to speak to two things.
we need the amortization to understand that.
Right, in front of you today, what I did is I put a copy of the amortization amount, which is sorry, I have the right sheet in front of me here. 2.74034,029. So we have a second budget which is identical to the one that you have in your package, except it includes amortization. And that budget shows a deficit of $2,034,029, which is the amount of amortization. That is required, as was explained some time ago, to be approved by council so that there's a comparative for our financial statements, which includes amortization. But we don't tax for amortization.
Essentially, when you get your audited budget, those are the figures that you approve. Councillor Bengry?
Second motion to that then, whereas council is required to account for amortization in the 2014 budget, it resolved that council adopts the 2014 budget including amortization as presented.
Any questions? All in favor? Thank you. Those are painless motions. All right, so now we need to deal with the mill rate. Please, thank you. Okay. All right, now we need to deal with the mill rate, and this is the bylaw 1624, and it's a bylaw that requires the rates, to authorize the rates of taxation to be levied against accessible property within the municipality for the 2014 taxation year. And the rates would be general municipal 7.4105 for residential and 12.7107 for non-residential. This also includes the total mill rate will be for residential 10.1267 and non-residential 16.7537, meaning they include the mill rate for education and for the senior. So what I need 4 different type of motion. Councillor Peavoy?
I, Councillor Peavoy, move first reading of bylaw 1624.
Thank you. Any question? All in favor? Thank you. I need a second motion for second reading. Councillor Barnes?
I, Councillor Dennis Barnes, move second reading of bylaw 1624.
All in favor? Thank you. And I'll need one to allow for third reading, Councillor Creed.
Councillor Creed, move to allow for third reading of bylaw 1624.
Are in favor? Thank you. And I'll need a final motion, Councillor Bengry.
Hi, Councillor Bengry. Move third reading of bylaw 1624.
Thank you, we're done.
No vote.
We now need to vote on this one. Very good.
Council. Again, I would like to apologize to council, I guess, a bit of explanation on the $40,000 misstep there. In 2013 was the first time that was waived, and the adjustment sheet is quite comprehensive because it deals with every single property that is either in the annexation or in development agreements who have some type of tax implication on our bottom line, and that the golf course had not been added to that document. And as I explained to council, I appreciate Noelle was home feeling absolutely awful and was working her hardest to put all this together, and I want to acknowledge Noelle publicly here tonight in the good work that she does for the town. And I think too often we forget how hard she works for us and makes all this come together, and we've seen it year after year in our audit presentations and in our financial position. So I just want to give Noelle a
thank you.
Thank you.
And I want to also add a thank you from this council to you, Noelle, as I expressed to you. I sent Noelle a little card on behalf of us all. Okay?
Appreciate it.
All right. All right, let's go for 7D, July and August council meeting date. And speaking with administration, 7D. In speaking with administration, okay, Councillor Barnes, we're going to wait for you. Are you there?
Yeah.
Councillor Peavoy, you're so kind, thank you. There. Okay, we expressed different, we tried to find 2 dates that could be useful, and we had mentioned prior to this meeting that we were thinking that one meeting a month in July and August would be appropriate in order to conduct our business, which is what has been done in the past. Therefore, we felt that July the 15th and August the 12th, because of administration being unavailable later in August for their own holidays, that those 2 dates would be far away from the June last meeting, June the 28th, and far away from the 1st September meeting. So we tried to split the difference more or less between those meetings. So what I need to know from you is how many of you will be present July the 15th, and how many could make it August the 12th. Essentially, that's what we need to see. We need a quorum. We cannot function without a quorum, and the more the merrier.
I'm not going away till October.
Good. Councillor Peavoy?
I should be there for both those days.
Okay. Same here. 3. I'll be there too. 4. You'll be there. 5. 6. We're fine. So somebody give me that motion then, please.
Barfuss hasn't done one for a while.
Okay, Councillor Barfuss, go ahead. Councillor Edmonds.
Whereas council feels it adequate to seat for one meeting in July and in August in the discharge of their duties, now therefore let it be resolved that council directs administration to select July 15th and August 2nd as the only council meetings.
12,
Oh,
please.
sorry, and August 12th as the only council meetings for the months of July and August.
Okay, all in favor? Thank you. All right, financial report.
Madam Mayor,
I'm so sorry.
can I interject there? As we talk about council meetings now, can we talk about the adjustment of our our times for council?
We said we were going to put it on the questions.
Oh, you put it on number 10?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
what we did. Okay, financial report, as you can see, there is a financial report. If you have any questions, you will see that there is an overdraft in cash. It's nothing abnormal at this time of the year. Taxes are collected in June. So at this time, we are dipping into our line of credit. I ask administration if our payable and receivables are up to date and current, and they are, which is something that is important to know. So we need a motion to approve this, a simple motion. Okay.
I move to accept the financial statements, or the financial report as presented.
Thank you. Any questions? All in favor? Thank you.
March 20, you should state March 20.
For March 2014.
January
Yes,
to March 31st.
it's correct. Okay, so let's move to 9. 9, there is a town council motion list for your information. Any question regarding those motion lists? You can see a little bit from that motion list where administration is at in pushing those motion forward as to the action
I
plan.
notice on those first 5 or so, there's no notes, progress notes yet.
Which means
Are they in
that,
the planning?
Jeff?
What happens, Councillor Barnes, is we made, that was on May 6th, May 8th, we put the agenda together for this meeting.
I got you.
So literally
Not
like the next 2 days later,
Okay.
so we just haven't updated them yet.
I just got our feet up for those 2 days.
Yeah, we took Wednesday
Okay.
off, basically mailed it in.
Thank you. Market surveillance, as you can see, that requires a simple motion also to approve this report. Councillor Edmonds, why don't you give me a motion?
I, Councillor Edmonds, move to approve the January 1st to March 31st, 2014 market surveillance report.
Thank you. Are in favor? Thank you. Okay, to your question, Councillor Bengry. Go ahead, it's your turn to talk.
Inasmuch as this council is continually extending our length of council meeting, I make a motion that we set council meeting end time farther ahead to at least 9 o'clock. And if we end before 9 o'clock, that's great.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Madam Mayor, that will require an amendment to our procedures bylaw.
Yeah, we
Meeting
can.
times are in the procedures bylaw, but if it is council's wishes, we can bring an amendment back, but rather than by motion.
Okay.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, maybe a question for administration. Is this going to affect the financials of our meetings?
Yes, it does.
I mean, how will that
I
impact?
wouldn't suggest it would, because you're paid per meeting, it's not on a time period. But the only caution I would have is that the 3 hours has been set for a number of years. And we have occasion when you have to extend, and there has been a couple of meetings lately that we've had to do that. I would say,
No.
for quite some time, we didn't have an extension. So it depends on the business of the meeting. Like tonight, when we had, 6 delegations, it's hard to get to the meat of the meeting until those are done. So you're going to find occasions when you will need to go longer than 3 hours. The concern is it's an evening. You want to make sure that you are being efficient in your time. So are we using the time wisely? Are we getting to the point in our discussions? And if you go too late into the evening, then I think your decisions are maybe somewhat impaired slightly because it's been a long day and you're here later. So those are just some cautions.
In that scenario then, can we direct administration to look at the agenda and the agenda items? And if there are some that can be deferred to a lesser
Later.
agenda, then add those to that agenda.
I would suggest, just in my conversations with administration in the past, they do that.
Just- Sorry, just one other thing. The intent of the CCW meeting, I think, is critical in this discussion as well. That is where the discussion, and especially what was had tonight, that we spent quite a bit of time on, that's the intent of the CCW. So if we're coming back to a council meeting and having,
A full
you know, a
discussion.
2-hour debate on recommendations coming out of CCW, you've defeated the purpose of the CCW. The second comment I would have is I noticed at I believe it was at the last council meeting when the committee reports, we spent a substantial amount of time on committee reports. And in that case, again, the written reports are provided. It should be a fairly succinct conversation, only if there's a specific question. So I think maybe a little more with thinking about those kind of things may speed the meeting up just a little bit.
Councillor
From my
Peavoy.
experience.
Actually, Councillor Edmonds was first.
Councillor Edmonds.
One of the Berkeley principles is that a meeting automatically adjusts the amount of time available.
And I agree with you.
And I
That's why-
think if we extend it,
Yeah,
we're gonna find that we say, well, we got an extra 4 hours now, so let's
Yeah, no.
extend it.
I'm of the same kind of idea. Let's keep it to 3 hours and let's tidy up the way we do business. Maybe I have to move along a little bit.
Mayor, it's not you, it's everybody. I think we have to realize that we can just go on forever and ever. So we need to make our points clear, precise, and move on with business.
Okay, well, maybe when we do our self-reflection in June, let's address those very specific points, how we can improve the efficiency of our meeting. Would that be all right? Okay, thank you.
So the only thing I was going to say on that was in addressing the CCW concern, which I totally understand the reasons we have the CCW, especially to accelerate the next meeting. What we're finding, I think in the last 2 CCWs, is that one of the intentions of the CCW is that that's when we do our public, isn't that when we do public hearings during that CCW meeting?
Not
Public hearing
specific.
and council meetings.
So what happens is we get issues that come up that the public is made aware of in the CCW, and then we've been getting new information in the next council meeting exactly 7 days later. So I think maybe, I don't know if that's an indication that we're not allowing enough time for public feedback on discussion, or if we're not including the public in our agenda prior to, or what. I mean, you know, I think, for instance.
Help me understand a little bit how you, can we reserve that for the meeting when we talk about the efficiency of our meeting? Would that be maybe a better time so we
I didn't
can
mean
move
to
forward?
I would
Yeah.
suggest that would be great, or else we're going to have to extend
Yeah,
again.
I think so.
Mayor, again, that comes with us being prepared to come to these meetings with our questions in hand. And if we're not prepared for it, we need to say we're not prepared to react to this and go forward. And table it, go forward.
But essentially, we want to be prepared when we come to meeting as much as possible, okay? So you have a motion on the table. Do you want to withdraw that motion then at this point?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. All right, let's move
At this point, I will.
through the correspondence.
I'll watch.
Okay, the correspondence, Kevin Brandvold, Regional Traffic Safety Consultant, different measure for your information. Alberta Culture, the September event, and we know that Councillor Creed and Peavoy are working on that. Thank you so much. Jim Hillier, MP Lesbridge constituency, very interesting grant that is now available for new project. The town is going to take advantage of those funds. There are 2 projects.
Try.
Yeah, Marian has contracted Lavina, don't remember last names, Henderson, to work on writing 2 grants. Marian, do you want to maybe explain those two grants?
Yeah,
to council,
well,
please?
I guess the issue right now we have is the infrastructure does not know how we are supposed to apply. So it's a little bit of a catch-22. Everyone says, yeah, it's ready to go, but there's no application process identified or open yet. So what we've done is we've identified two projects that are, one that's currently in our budget, and that's the West Industrial, that we feel fits with the criteria.
The which?
The West Industrial expansion, so the infrastructure
We
there.
have to do a highway.
And the other one that we've identified is creek bank stabilization around the campground. And also at the golf course, we have an area there. So we're gonna write both of those grants and have them ready to submit as soon as we have information on the application process.
Thank you. Okay, the 2014 Pincher Creek Southern Alberta Summer Game. I might need to get the deputy mayor at the time or someone on council to go in my stead. But I will have to confirm that a little bit later, okay? But we will send somebody. Town of McGrath, a letter of support for your initiative. Councillor Creed and Councillor Peavoy, so thank you. Allman Watershed Council, really for your information. Cardston County, a letter of support for the college. Alberta Municipal Affairs, really for your information. Sean Fife and Victor Happy Chuck, I would imagine. Letter regarding the fluoride, regarding the removing of the fluoride, and a rebuttal to Dr. Schwab presentation. Clinton Shell, Hecdale, Day of the Honeybee, that is something that comes up every year in our packet. And according to good governance, if you're not intending to do something about it, don't do it. And Lethbridge Port Council, letter support requested by the town of Lethbridge for their winter games in 2015, am I correct? So we need 2019, sorry. So we need a letter of support from this council to do that. So
I'll make a motion that we send a letter of support for the Lethbridge for the supporting them on the winter for the
2019 winter games.
winter game application.
I'm sorry. It's a Lethbridge Sports Council.
Canada winter.
Okay, so all in favor? Thank you. And no confidential items, so now one more. All Councillor Barfuss, thank you.
One other thing before you disappear. There was a concern about honeybees over the last few years. They have found a cause of it.
A virus.
No, it's a pesticide.
Pesticides.
Oh,
Which
okay.
the United States is refusing to remove off the market.
Well,
So
the trees don't bloom anymore. Don't know what happened.
What is he asking us to do? Is he asking for a letter of support too?
He's asking for us to declare a day of the honeybee.
And I think that's a good, I
That's
mean,
not a bad idea.
not a bad idea.
It's
Doesn't
if
cause
you,
anything, would it?
well, it causes you something, Councillor. What it causes you that if you are not prepared on an annual basis to do something regarding it, to declare a day is not helpful.
Yeah.
To declare a day and do education around the issue, then it is
Well, I
useful.
think we probably should be doing something.
But if we do not do education and who will do it, if you don't have a whole program in place, you see a lot of county, or there are about 56 counties that are involved, because I found that in Canada,
Loud
how many
and clear.
towns in Canada.
especially around my
So
area.
where you have,
We haven't voted to quit yet, have we?
here we have,
Between, kind of over by
I
the.
thought he brought up just before we voted.
no, it just, oh, we already voted. But just got really, really want us to not declare a day of the